Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys for joining me. Happy Friday. We are back on the channel live doing readings this evening, and I'm going to be answering your questions about this up and coming new moon in Libra. Also talking to you guys about transits to your natal chart or your synastry questions. I'm live on October 17th, 2025, Friday. So if you can see me, give me a thumbs up. Say hello in the chat if you're watching live, and if you're watching this on Saturday or Sunday, I am no longer live. I missed you. Hopefully we can catch you guys next week for live tarot, and I'm excited to be back. We've got a number of people who are already in the queue and they're waiting for readings. Just a heads up, just so you guys know how this works, there's a QR code right here. If you want to get in the queue and get a reading, scan the QR code. This will take you to my PayPal. In the memo box before you make your donation, make sure that you put all the information relating to your natal chart. So I need to know your name, your exact time, date of birth, and location. Please fill out the month and put the AM and the PM for me as well to avoid any confusion. I know we've got people who are watching from all over the world, but that's the format we use here in the States. And we are accepting donations for readings. It's $55 US for any one question, or we can do synastry readings for $75. You'll need to send the information for you and your partner, and I can talk to you a little bit about your guys' astrology, your compatibility, and the current transits. So let's see what else we got going on. That's pretty much it. It's mid-month, so if you guys happen to be a level 4 member, then you guys can cash in on your readings. I know we've got a couple here this evening. So Deanna is here, Enchanted is here. We'll be taking our level 4 members first. If you guys don't already know, I do have memberships. It's a way to support me as a full-time content creator on YouTube. We're putting out 4 long format videos every week. I'm here Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays. You guys know Fridays are lives, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays we have content. We also put out Astro Weather on Sundays. It's like my Sunday sermon. And we have all kinds of other things. Tarot scopes are on the channel now. We are also doing lots of shorts. I don't know if you guys are catching them. And we're also doing new full moon reports, retrograde reports, and horoscopes for the 12 rising signs. So much content on the channel. Do consider becoming a member to support me or get a reading. So I have Deanna and Enchanted. So what's up, guys? I saw Matt's here. We've got Ascending Truth is here. Hello, happy Friday. Enchanted is here, so we'll be getting your readings in as well. And then I've got Matt, Heather, Kate, and Austin. You guys are all in the queue for a reading. We'll let you guys know how long we're going to keep the queue open for. So when we do decide to shut it down, we'll call last call. And then that way you guys know that you can kind of get in and get your reading before we call it a night for this evening. If you're looking for tarot, catch you back here next Friday. And that's what we will be doing then. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. We're gonna start with Deanna and then Enchanted. You guys are up first. And if you guys hear your name, which is me letting you know I've got you. And if you can't stay for whatever reason for the reading, once you get your name in the queue, we always leave the live readings up so you guys can come back to it at a later date, and you can listen to this later this evening or tomorrow, and also give me some feedback, and you can leave me comments on the video and let me know how the reading works out for you guys. What's up, Dorothy? Happy Friday. No worries. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of that with the government shutdown. So at least it's inspiring you to work on your business, right? Ascending Truth says, any date yet on your deck? So on Sunday's Astro Weather, I pulled tarot cards using my new deck. So I just got it in the mail yesterday. It's really cool. I'm so excited. I had to make a couple some tweaks, some aesthetic things, but we're hoping to have it for sale probably, I would say, in about a month, maybe less than that. So we're going to have them. We're probably going to do like 100. We're going to do like a limited order of 100 of them. Come back on Friday. I'll show you. I'll do readings with the deck so you can see it next week. I missed you too. All right, so we're gonna get started with Deanna. Let's see what she has to say, what she's got going on. Thanks, Dorothy. Deanna says, hello, cashing in to 1278. My lunar return is upon us. Anything to help me navigate the next month. I've been booked and busy so much. I've been so sick all week. Relationship is okay, even though we have had a come to Jesus moment. I applied to a master's program, Irish folklore and mythology in Cork. Wow, that won't start until next fall, but I'm excited. Well, there's some exciting things on the horizon for you. So do you want me to talk more transits, or would you like me to look at your lunar return? Because we could do either or. If we do the lunar return, we can do it from LA, if that's where you are, and take a look at what's coming up for the next month, or we can look primarily at the transits. Certainly I have something to say about both of them, because if you're having a lunar return right now with like Venus in its home sign kind of hovering around your north node, it's pretty fortuitous. Okay, so Diana is a Leo rising, and she's got her sun in Capricorn and her moon in Libra, so she's about to have her lunar return here in a couple of days. Basically, you know, the themes of the stuff that you're talking about higher education, you know, stuff revolving around also traveling, a brand new kind of philosophy on life and potentially even home. That's a lot of the Mars transits that are kind of going on right now. So the next week astrologically is action-packed. Make sure you guys watch the astro weather. I talk a lot about what's kind of happening with Mercury and Mars. As a Leo rising, you know, Mars going through the 4th house means that, you know, you might be kind of kicking ass and getting stuff done at home. But it can also feel like emotional burnout and emotional overload, because Scorpio can be where we obsess and we fixate on things too much. And Saturn is actually what rules your health. So there is some positive sides to some of the stuff that's coming up. You know, the willingness to kind of clean house emotionally or literally will be trining Saturn. So it can support some pretty significant work, emotional, and home related kind of themes. And I think you'll get a little bit of a reprieve from that, especially when you're seeing like the moon going through Scorpio. That's going to really help you kind of go, okay, well, how am I kind of better supporting myself emotionally, or kind of shifting things revolving around how I'm working at home, or what's going on with home and family dilemmas. The other thing to think about is that you're also going to be seeing Mercury in the mix. And so a lot of it is money stuff, it's security stuff, things revolving around self-esteem. And we know that the South Node is connected to Scorpio. The South Node is connected to Mercury in Scorpio. So, you know, it would be a really great week to like clean out the fridge, clean out your kitchen, clean out the closets, like get rid of any excess or unnecessary things. And also this is about finding ways to budget and cut back on expenses, because a lot of Leo risings are kind of feeling the impact of like, oh my God, you know, increased cost of living, grocery expenses, rent, stuff revolving around just odds and ends around like the home. And you might be trying to find ways to kind of save money, budget, clean things out, donate things, or potentially sell stuff that you don't need. Equally, a Mercury retrograde can be a really good time to like go to an estate sale if you need to pick up some items, or if you're wanting to have a garage sale, or if you're wanting to donate things, it can be a really good time to do that as well. I do think a lot of stuff revolving around family is inevitably going to come up. Scorpio can be where one phase ends and a new one begins. So I would question, you know, with Mars kind of being in the mix with these transits in your 4th house, if you're planning on, you know, enrolling and kind of taking a program next fall, does that go hand in hand with you moving, right? You guys know me, I'm like such a psycho with astrology. I always like see things like a year in advance. So I've put this out there briefly, but the Mercury retrograde, even though it starts in Sagittarius, it's going to retrograde back to Scorpio. So it means that we have to go back and we have to make a significant change in the Scorpio area of our life before we move forward into Sagittarius. So you're like, I'm feeling a lot of mixed emotions and things changing about, you know, what I have to give up or change at home to move forward in a relationship, Sagittarius 5th house. And also, are you willing to transform your home and like what you know and what's familiar in order to go on an adventure and like learn and like go and be a part of another culture? Next year in the fall, I think it's gonna be October, we're gonna see Venus retrograde through Scorpio. So in a way, this Mercury retrograde is a precursor, in my opinion, to some of the bigger themes that are gonna be changing in 2026. And Mercury and Venus will be retrograding starting in the sign of Scorpio next fall. So the fact that you're like, oh, I'm applying for this program, I'm gonna have to move, right? It's very much tied to this Mercury retrograde. What's cool is right now, these planets are actually going to start coming into a trine with Saturn. So it means that you're gonna start having conversations with your partner about expenses, moving, saving money, joint, you know, financial matters, how you're gonna fund this relocation, who's gonna not depend, but who's gonna feel like they're needing to rely on another person for emotional, home, or financial support. So obviously I look at this and I'm like, okay, she's trying to get her home and house in order. She's trying to kind of make plans for where she's going to be next year. In the meantime, she might feel like she's really trying to work and save money and be resourceful and like start to downsize to make the transition that would then come next year easier, right? At least in my opinion. So a good time to start talking about that stuff. It's definitely pretty emotional this week with all of the water trines. So if you're somebody who has like a lot of earth or a lot of fire or air in your chart, it may be a little kind of unusual because there's just so much water energy. But my philosophy this week is like, if something is bothering you, if something's a problem, if something needs to be unearthed or talked about or dealt with, do it. And a lot of it is going to be about this preparation for you ultimately getting ready to move. She says, I've been saving like a maniac and I'm not a saver. A lot of that is the fact that the South Node is going through your second house. So you're unwilling to spend as much money as what you would kind of typically spend. Although Saturn is tied to your whole sign second house. So, you know, maybe the Uranus kind of square Saturn right now is, you know, encouraging you to focus more on your educational travel goals. So it's reinforcing being more conservative. And certainly Mercury retrograde here as well. So, I mean, if there are things that you don't need that you want to get rid of or clear out of your house, it's a really good time to consider like selling it, putting it on eBay, you know, having a yard sale, a garage sale, donating things, because it looks like you may have valuables or things that you're willing to kind of part with that can kind of help the funding pursuit to make the kind of transition in this next year a lot easier. Other than that, I would say that, you know, when the Mercury retrograde shadow kicks in here in a couple days, that's a good time to take inventory on like what you would want to keep and what you want to kind of get rid of. And what you could do is you could wait until the moon goes through there around the 23rd and do, you know, some of that house cleaning emotionally or quite literally clearing stuff in the home. You want to watch also for emotional burnout. So, you know, Moon Mars does make me feel like you might be feeling a little bit run down and kind of like emotional or moody about some of the changes that are kind of happening for you right now. You'll get through it. On the other side of the transit, as the week goes on, when Mercury and Mars start trining Saturn and Neptune, I think you're feeling a little bit more emotionally secure with some of the decisions and the changes that you're going to be making. But I think that you need a lot of like, what's the word that I'm looking for? Reassurance. You're needing reassurance with the trines to Saturn from your partner. So it's more like emotional, and the fact that, you know, you guys maybe have to have some come to Jesus moments, some difficult conversations, but necessary in order to really fully prepare and move forward with a sense of security that you need. Work is probably going to continue to be quite chaotic. I mean, you know, not necessarily in a bad way. When I think about Leo rising horoscopes, I think about how the year is going to go, and November is about trying to find more time to be able to kind of, you know, have fun and kind of cut loose, and then home responsibilities are going to come calling again at the end of the month. And then you're going to see a pretty significant pickup in energy at the end of December when Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, all these planets go into your 8th house. So it's going to be very much the end of December into January, very health focused, very work focused. And you're going to have some really cool trines that are going to be happening to Uranus. So I feel like you're actually starting the year off very strong work-wise. It doesn't really seem like there's a lot of chaos. It seems like there's a need for you to get really structured and committed and kind of like really drilling down on your workflow. And a lot of this can be about being diligent with your schedule. It can be about delegating tasks. It could also be about making sure that you're really taking care of your health. Especially with Mars in its exaltation, I feel like this is a time where most likely your health will improve. But I think anything that's really kind of bogging you down physically right now, health-wise, is actually more so connected to your emotions. She says, I'll be in Ireland in December. Well, hopefully you're going to be able to do something fun in the midst of some of the work stuff that's clearly going to be happening. Maybe it can be like a work and play kind of transit. Let me look at, I just want to see where your moon is going to be for the month. So your lunar return will be, actually, wait a second, that's 2026. Little too early. There we go. The lunar return will be on October 20th, so it's going to be on the new moon, so that's kind of cool. Not the same degree. Your moon's at 20, the new moon's going to be at 27, so that is kind of like a reset, especially in your third house in terms of relationship, communication, and travel. But the new moon is actually, or the lunar return is taking place in your ninth house, so it's going to be a lot of focus in this next month on studies, education, marketing, advertising, teaching, traveling for relationship related things too. Look at how the moon and the sun are coming into a square with Pluto. So there's a need for like a new, fresh sense of commitment in relationships. And it's also kind of pushing on, you know, personal transformation with Pluto in the first. And Saturn rules this particular chart for your lunar return, and Saturn is in conjunct our quincunx Libra in the ninth. So it can make me feel like there is like a lot of unforeseen conversations that are coming in this next month revolving around travel expenses, maybe conversations that you've been kind of waiting to kind of have. Maybe you're giving your partner like the freedom or the ability to see if they're going to kind of take the lead in some of these situations and organizing movement, travel, you know, seeing each other. I like that Mercury and Mars is going to be in your 10th house trining Saturn. It's a very powerful time where there's a lot of confidence and there's a huge boost when it comes to your work and your routine, and also like giving you more kind of financial security with the trines to Saturn in your second house. So if somebody's coming to visit you in the coming weeks, that would make sense with the new moon being in the ninth house. Relationship, Libra, foreigner, ruled by Venus, and then Venus is hanging out in the 8th house. So it seems like a lot of it's going to be if the finances align for that person, they're going to make it possible to be able to come. And Saturn is kind of in opposition to Venus. The moon more rules what's going on with relationships. And if you look, the moon is in opposition to Chiron, squaring Jupiter. So even this is saying the same thing. You're waiting to see if partners are going to kind of take the lead in, okay, I'm scheduling travel, I'm calling you, we're making plans, you know, like letting them do that. And it can feel a little overwhelming with some of the Jupiter squares. I don't know about you. It looks like Jupiter's been squaring your moon like the last couple of weeks. I'm having that too. And I'm just kind of like, I feel like I'm crazed with all the stuff that's happening at one time. There will be more of this that's going to come up in the next month, but it does look like there can be a lot of good communication that you can be having with a partner, as long as they're willing to kind of show up and do the work and not make you feel like you're the person who's having to kind of coordinate everything. Because it looks like there's a lot of exhaustion coming from work and not wanting to feel like it's kind of your responsibility to coordinate everything. So giving them the opportunity to do that and seeing if they'll meet you halfway. Anyway, I hope that that's helpful for you. The squares have been so wild. My moon's in Aries, and like with the square with the sun the last 2 days in Libra, and it's squaring my natal Jupiter. I'm like, just too much stuff is going on. But it wasn't until yesterday that I was like, oh, okay, it's just the Jupiter square. Even I forget what's going on sometimes, guys. All right, well, hopefully that's helpful for you, Dion. I hope you get to see him. All right, so we have got, who else do we have? Enchanted. What's up, Enchanted? I will take you next. What's up, Jala? First, I'm booking an astro question here through PayPal. Do I put my question here too? Well, if you're a member, you get a reading with your monthly membership. Let me see. What level membership are you? I have to check. And then I'll take Enchanted in just a second. Let me just double check this really quick. All right, let's just pop into my memberships really quick. Level 1. Okay. Well, if you sent to PayPal, then if you put the question in the memo, I will have it. If you did not, just send it to me if you can, please, in the chat. That way I can take a look. And I'll put you on my list. Let's see. Is that you, the research services? I don't know why it came up as that is your name, but I think that might be you because you were the last one that popped in. Yeah, okay. I'll add your chart as we get there, but I'll call your name out in a second. And it looks like I've got you here, August 5th, 89. Career shifts. No worries, it's okay. When you hear me call out your name, I'll let you know when your reading's coming. All right, so we've got Enchanted. What's up, Enchanted? Aries rising, Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Scorpio. And Enchanted says, cashing in, what do I need to be aware of for this new moon? All right, well, let's take a look. So we are going to have the new moon that's going to be in Libra on the 21st of October, 2025. Obviously, the new moon is right on top of your north node within about a 2-degree orb, so that's prominent. It's also very close to your natal moon, so it's going to be happening right around the time of your lunar return, which will happen just a couple hours later, also prominent. And as an Aquarius, it's trining your sun. So it's pretty friendly in that regard, but it's making a lot of aspects. Squaring your Mercury, trining your sun, opposing your Chiron. Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So let's break it down. A new moon obviously is an opportunity to plant new seeds. And so this means that in a general sense, especially as an Aries rising, when you hear like the general astrology forecast, new moon, new opportunities for relationships, that does kind of correlate for you. Positive is that the new moon is ruled by Venus, and Venus is sitting in your 7th house. So it's saying if you want to attract more clients, money, relationships, support, connection, if you want to work with a business partner, if you want to meet somebody, this is basically the seeds that you're planting for the next 6 months. And so it can take 2 to 4 weeks to start to see the fruit coming, but you have to really give this about 6 months to see it fully evolve. Thankfully, this is one of the first kind of transits where we're seeing new or full moons in Aries and Libra, that there are no eclipses tied to this. What's interesting though is this is the degree that's in opposition to an eclipse that we had in Aries several years ago. So if you think back to when we first started having the Aries eclipses, one was like, I think it was in 2023, and it was at 29 degrees. So those eclipses were more about, figuring out who you are, how you are evolving, how you're healing, being independent, focusing on your health, focusing on your body. Now, several years later, we have a new moon that's opposing that. So it's kind of saying that there is this completion that's happened, revolving around kind of figuring out who you are. Now it's opening the door to letting some kind of companionship in, so you choose. If not, you can use this as a time to have new offerings, new services, connect with clients. I like that it's trining your sun because it does kind of help get you a little bit more socialized. It does help bring in opportunities for you to kind of get out and about, network, connect with groups, and have fun. You're going to hear as an Aquarius that it's kind of travel related. It may correspond to that, or it might be about relationships at a distance. Where it gets a little tricky is this is almost an exact opposition to your Chiron. So if you heard the, new moon report, it was basically talking about how, okay, the new moon comes in, we have the opportunity for relationships. However, if we are still wounded, or we're not addressing our wounds, or if we haven't, healed identity issues, or if we still feel like the Lone Ranger, relationships are going to feel more challenging and out of reach. We also see that this in conjuncts our quincunxus Saturn. So it can mean that this is about you working behind the scenes, working with clients at a distance, not wanting to get too close, creating some kind of necessary emotional or spiritual boundaries so people aren't kind of like attaching themselves to you. Now, I like that the new moon is sitting on top of your north node, which basically means it's opening the door to your destiny, your dharma, or your purpose. So it can actually usher in over the next 6 months really prominent new collaborations. It could be bringing in management, therapists, working with an astrologer, and bringing in some kind of new relationship opportunity or potential. Yeah, Enchanted, this is for you. The other thing to kind of think about is that it is squaring your Mercury. So whenever you see these degrees, like, 24, 25, 26, 27, it's creating a grand cardinal cross in your chart. Okay, so it's going to bring tension to Libra, partnerships, Capricorn, career, Aries, self, Cancer, anything revolving around like the home and like the private life. So it represents that there is almost like a crossroads, right? Pun intended, that's going to be happening for you over the next, 6 months. And that if you want to see, relationship growth, or if you want more collaboration with other people, or if you want more support or more clients, you're going to have to be willing to really get in order when it comes to networking and communications and any like business communications, Mercury and Capricorn. It also means that you may have to step out of your comfort zone because it's opposing Chiron, in your first house. So you don't have to feel wounded. You don't have to feel like you're isolated or by yourself. And it's also an opening square to Jupiter in your whole sign fourth, closer to your fifth. I see this as like creative collaborations that might be kind of coming up. I see this also as that in conjunct with the quincunx to Saturn is becoming so accustomed and so used to being alone, being single, working by yourself, being solitary, that getting back into the swing of, interacting with people, socializing with people, being open to relationships and partnerships, it almost feels like you won't always see them if you're kind of like self-isolating. So it's kind of a warning that's like, okay, don't get too comfortable being on your own. Put yourself out there. And I like that Jupiter is squaring this because it's saying it can bring a lot of creative collaborations, but it also really opens the door to like new romantic connections if you so choose to, use it that way. I like the Aries rising horoscopes in this next week and a half. I feel like with Mercury and Mars in conjunction, you guys are going through some major turning points where you're like, what am I afraid of? And like, what's holding me back? And how do I need to make changes to the way that I'm thinking or communicating with people or how I see the world? It's a lot of deep introspection, and you're really going to benefit from a lot of the trines that are kind of factored into this particular new moon, because Mercury and Mars are conjunct. So that's a fusion of you, your mind. Also, it can be about divination. It can be about accounting, taxes, joint finances. And Mercury's intercepted in your sixth, which I think makes this a little bit easier. So it's more about going, okay, I have to be willing to, get out and about and communicate and connect with people in a new way. Let's make some adjustments to my work schedule. Let's kind of put myself out there and see what happens. And if you tap into that, all these yummy trines to Saturn and also Jupiter means it's going to increase joy. It's going to get you out of the house. It's also going to be about listening to your intuition and your gut when it comes to navigating new relationship dynamics, right? Enchanted says, I get too isolated. I'm getting out of isolation, working with Sensei company where I've been actually able to talk to people face to face. So that's cool. So that's good then, especially because Venus in Libra, it is about having clients and it is about dealing with beauty. It's connected to the senses. So, Venus has association with Taurus. So it can be about makeup and scents and perfume and food and anything that's considered luxury. And Venus is actually the ruler of this, and it's trining Uranus, which means there could be spontaneous opportunities to make more money, also travel, right? And there's a trine to Pluto in Aquarius, so it's about networking opportunities. So I like for Aries and Aries risings that the new moon is really pressing down on Saturn, being like, you're going to have people that are going to kind of pull you out of your funk or pull you out of your hole. And you might feel like people are inviting you to stuff, or they're texting you, or they're reaching out. And really the key here is to be like, instead of going, oh, I'm not answering that call, or I'm not available, or I don't really want to deal with people today. Answer the invitation, respond to the invitation if you can. And you might find that there is just going to be a lot of opportunity to be making money with tarot, because Mercury is divination, right? And Mars is about symbolism. As that's trining and making aspects to Saturn and Jupiter, it's like money can come in much easier, and it could be something that you're just really in the flow with, and readings might flow a little bit better. I don't know if you have noticed that already, but Mercury and Mars are already coming into a trine with Jupiter, your whole sign 12th house lord, and also Saturn, right? So, okay, well, I like the tarot card reading thing. I think that can definitely be a good thing to kind of start doing, and watch the Mercury retrograde, because it's going to be about a shift in how you're looking at work. It could also be a good financial shift that can be happening for you, bringing in some, an extra boost of your income, especially right before your Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus. This also does slightly in conjunct or quincunx Jupiter, so it's also trying to bring more resources in, and it's funny that it's like literally through sense, right? Beauty. Taurus related things, and Venus is the ruler there. So at the very least, you make some extra cash and you're able to kind of socialize. And I think that's worth its weight in gold during this transit, because you might actually realize, wow, haven't really, socialized with people in a while. I haven't really gotten out and talked to people. Like, I think I like this. I think I've missed this. And you're kind of willing to come out of hibernation mode and be a little bit more kind of socially active. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Enchanted. It's always cool like seeing somebody who has like a 0-degree Aries rising and just how much it correlates with just like the general astrology. You guys are like little mini archetypes for what's kind of going on out in the world. All right, we have got Matt, and then Heather, and then Kate. I've got Austin. I've got Jala. Am I saying that right? And it looks like Miad and Stephanie also got in there too, and I'll add you guys in just a little bit when I add some more charts. If you guys are tuning in, you want a reading, scan the QR code. You can get in the queue for a reading. Just make your donation and make sure you put your information in the memo box, please. All right, let's look at Matt. Let's see what's going on here. So, oh, cool. Let's see what Matt has to say. What's up, Matt? All right, Matt says, all right, January 23rd, 95, he's in Aries rising with the sun in Aquarius and the moon is in Libra. And Matt says, I have a few lymphomas taken out of my right arm in the past and have had some more that I would like removed. However, the dermatologist is sending me to a surgeon this time, and the surgeon wants to knock me out, which I really don't want to do on Wednesday. The doc said that it's extremely low likeliness that something's serious, but there's no way to know for sure without taking them out. However, he also said we can check back in January. If there's no growth, we won't need surgery. On one hand, I believe in being cautious. On the other hand, I've become a hypochondriac since my eye injury in 2021, and I'm currently working with my therapist to overcome the fact that I have a new health worry every week. My therapist advised me that since I'm always worried about this stuff, that it's probably best I just wait and see until the 12th. Objectively, I know that it's almost certainly nothing, but I'm also worried that I will regret waiting until January for a checkup. Meanwhile, I do have another appointment scheduled for December 10th. To see if I can just get them removed with local anesthesia. P.S. I think one of the lymphomas might actually just be a normal part of my arm. I've truly gone crazy. Every other thing I've looked at my arm has always been okay. Thanks for your help, as always. You're welcome, Enchanted. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so here's the deal. I have some thoughts about this. Obviously, I'm an astrologer on the internet. I'm not a doctor. But there's something to be said about the fact that there are some squares going on to Mars in the 6th house. So, you know, keep that in mind that Uranus is squaring. So it does bring a lot of nervous tension revolving around anything going on with cutting, removing, anything that's also dealing with lasers or heat. 2 is Mars rules your chart, okay? So Mars transits are really significant. And this week is about overcoming fears and phobias revolving around health-related issues. Why? Well, Scorpio deals with psychological stuff, right? Where we can become fearful, we can become too rigid, we can kind of freeze up, we can become paranoid, and also things that can be unhealthy or toxic. I'm not surprised that they're recommending that for you to go and have something cut and removed, that you need to do anesthesia. And here's why I think that. Because Mars is your body and Mercury represents health, and Mercury is intercepted in your 6th. So as Mercury and Mars over the next week are coming into conjunction in the 8th house, it's actually conjuncting at 20 degrees. It's about surgery. 20 degrees is a surgical degree, right? Especially when Mercury and Mars is there. Words, precision, communication, all that stuff. And talking about, hey, you might actually need something removed. These planets are coming into a trine with Saturn. So this is about authority figures and people who are kind of guiding you and telling you what you need to do. And Neptune, which is about hospitals, inpatient things. Neptune is anesthesia. I can tell you that from my perspective, like if this were me, knowing that Mercury is going to retrograde, and that means that you could drag it out and you could delay this and you could go and check in and keep your, December 10th appointment, which I would. We'll look at the date for that in a second. And try to see, is there another option, right? It's about balancing and kind of weighing things out during the retrograde. Is there another procedure? Can we try to do it without anesthesia?
And Mercury is connected to Virgo, which is opposing Saturn and Neptune. Like, I think you're going to get a lot more out of the transit by working with your therapist, number one. You know, the Mercury retrograde in the 8th house with Mars means you could have a pretty significant breakthrough. Trines to Saturn and Neptune would be like meditations on health and healing. It would be frequency healing. It would be connecting to, you know, soaks and baths and anything that's going to kind of relax you. And maybe even hypnosis, as crazy as it sounds. Like, hypnosis can be actually something that's very powerful for you to work with over the next month and overcoming some of your fears in general. You'll have another opportunity to do that in March of next year too, when you have a retrograde. Your arms, or anything connecting to your arms or your elbows or your shoulder, is going to be Mercury. So knowing that Mercury is about to go into shadow and it's going to retrograde back, like, why would you go and put yourself through the stress and the anxiety and the worry of doing the anesthesia if it could potentially be nothing, right? You'd have to have a really negative transit going on with your Mercury for something to be wrong with your health. No outer planets are squaring your Mercury right now. You know, Mercury and Mars are coming into a square with Mercury, so it's going to be literally mind over matter and trying to figure out a new way to emotionally or psychologically overcome through the square some of the concerns that you have about your health. You said that you're going to be going and you have an appointment to follow up just to see if you can do it with local anesthesia on December the 10th. So let's go and look at that. By then, the Mercury retrograde is over, just an FYI, so that's good. It's still in shadow, but the retrograde's over. So Mercury is going to be in Scorpio still. It's going to be in and out of Scorpio for quite some time. And it will be trining Saturn. So that's good for getting a general kind of like, okay, we've handled or managed the situation. It's also trining Neptune. Like, I look at this and I'm like, you might actually, by listening to your gut and being like, I want to try and do it without anesthesia, Saturn and Neptune, have pretty good results. Now look, the moon is going to be going through Virgo that day, and it's going to be coming into what looks like a slight square later in the day. So it'll be in the evening with Venus. But the moon coming into conjunction with the South Node is about overcoming emotional habits that are tied to health, right? So like, putting it all together, if this were me, I would much rather you, if you're going to remove something, I want you to either do it while Mercury is in Scorpio, or you wait until Capricorn, while Mars is in Scorpio, or you wait until Mars gets into Capricorn. So December 10th is a different dermatologist to see if they will do local anesthesia. And then a follow-up with the first doctor is January the 10th. Well, it's very likely they'll be able to do something local, because it looks like you going like, no, I want to do something that's going to be easier. I don't want to be put under. And then I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that January is going to be even better for any medical procedure, anything, even if you're, you know, not wanting to go and do like the full put under. On the 10th, you're going to have the Sun conjunct Mars. So that's your 6th house ruler. Mars is your chart ruler. This is now coming into a sextile with Saturn, and it's a square to the moon. So like, kind of getting picky here. I'm not really looking at a calendar, but I would tell you it would probably be better if the moon were in Virgo. So January 7th looks better to me. You may be able to push it to January the 8th because of the trines here. And then you have another option where you can wait until the moon is coming into conjunction with Mars and these other planets around January 18th. These are better dates. But going back to where the astrology is now, over the next week, it looks like you're really focused on emotionally or psychologically overcoming some kind of fear revolving around surgery and listening to your gut and being more conservative. I would definitely follow up with another doctor to see if they will do something that's going to be, you know, local rather than being put under. I also feel like most likely, because you don't have any hard aspects going on, you know, with your whole sign 6th house ruler, there is nothing that I think that you're going to find is wrong. That's just my opinion. I don't see it. Certainly, I'm not crazy also about, you know, Uranus coming into a square with Mars too, because this is saying it could be bringing up a lot of like nervous kind of mental static revolving around whether or not you have to kind of cut or remove something. So you can go, But I feel like you might get yourself all worked up and you go there and they're like, yeah, we can remove this with local. And then they do it and they're like, okay, we'll get the results to you. And then they're like, we don't see anything, you know? That's how I see it. Do you see it being anything serious? Mostly my paranoia. Is it just Pluto conjunct the sun paranoia? You kind of answered it. I remember telling you like a year, maybe a year and a half ago, I was like, when Pluto comes up on your sun, you have to be mindful that you're going to become super worried or fearful about your health because the sun rules your Mars and it rules your 6th house. But here's what's interesting. Pluto is about personal power. It's about empowerment when it hits the sun. It doesn't always feel like that. And you have to be careful with Pluto situations because if you are going through a Pluto transit and it's in hard aspect to your sun, your moon, or your ascendant, your chart ruler, I have found Pluto goes, what are you afraid of? And then he serves it to you on like a silver platter. So really it's mind over matter. You know, Pluto's going to finally leave your sun here at the beginning of the year. So as you're getting to the beginning of 2026, it's going to start to move away from your sun and things are going to kind of ease up. Is this what it feels like being a Scorpio? Yeah, to some extent. I have Pluto conjunct my sun natally. So I was laughing in the astro weather this week. I was like, I can't wait to see all of these people have like meltdowns and be like, what is going on? Because Mercury, Mars, the sun are all in Scorpio and everything's squaring Pluto. So yeah, this can be what it's like, but I think that what I've observed through Pluto conjunctions, specifically the sun with clients, is like when they go through those transits, especially when it's at a Gemini degree, sure, you could have something surgically removed from your arms or your hands or whatever, but it's you bringing forth that experience because you are so afraid of something that you're like, oh my God, you know, I'm so afraid there's something wrong. So let's go and surgically like remove it, right? Definitely better transits than what you've had in previous months. I would say it wouldn't have been a good idea, you know, when Mars was opposing it, when Mercury was opposing it. And if you're going to do anything where you're removing anything, right, the transits when Mars is in Scorpio because it's trining Saturn, and also the transits when Mars is in Capricorn because it's going to be making some sextiles to Saturn, would be the times that you actually want to do it. Yeah, you can worry yourself sick. I mean, it's quite literal. You know, Pluto is in an air sign. It's mental. It's at a 3 degrees. So it's about thinking about communicating and also worrying. It's conjunct the ruler of your 6th house of health and also Mars, which is your chart ruler. And it's at 29 degrees retrograde. So it's really saying that this is about you going, rather than being fearful of situations and worrying about situations to the point where you're constantly seeking, okay, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with this? What's wrong with that? It's actually trying to bring forth more of the Aquarius stuff. So it's like, you know, a cool manifestation as its transit is you've been learning astrology, right? Literally online, 11th house, amongst a bunch of like people you don't know, Aquarian type of individuals who are also like learning and watching astrology videos and communicating and like getting feedback and like seeing, you know, like, and getting feedback from other people and kind of seeing how the astrology kind of tracks. I would say that, you know, you're still going to go through eclipses that are going to be happening in your 6th house. So like the Virgo eclipses are still going to happen there next year. You're going to also continue to see some transits that are going to happen with some of the eclipses that are going to be in like Leo and Jupiter. But I think when they start cycling out of Virgo, that's when you're going to be feeling a little bit better. But go and talk to them and see if they can do the local. Try to stick to the dates that I gave you if you can. And if you do decide that, you know what, you want to push this off and maybe, you know, you'll try doing local anesthesia. And if not, then you'll do a follow-up appointment to see if it's really necessary. Because if nothing is changing, if nothing is like growing, or if there isn't any development with the growth, you might opt to just be like, I'm just going to hold off completely until January, and then we're going to make a decision to see if anything changes. That's totally fine for you to do, because the astrology is actually really favorable for you to be able to kind of do that at this time. Man, in those retrogrades, that's going to go right over your Jupiter and over your Pluto. Could not be a better time than in November for you to seriously consider working with a hypnotherapist. If not a hypnotherapist, stay working with your therapist, or consider doing meditations on like easing the mind or anything that's going to be about like, you know, kind of healing, because it's about getting into that kind of like Pluto Jupiter where you can kind of like psychologically change and shift your philosophy revolving around health and like not allowing it to impact your sleep or consume you or make you kind of like worried. Right? But I think that if I were you, at the very least, I would at least try to hold off and see if you can do local. I think I personally would not want to do anything with anesthesia when Neptune and Saturn are in the late degrees of Pisces retrograde. That's just me. I wouldn't want to be in a hospital. I wouldn't want to be putting myself in a situation where I had to be taking medications and being put under, because I don't like that conjunction in conjunct to your Mars. I don't think that that's smart. I think it's intentionally scaring you and freaking you out because it's trying to get you to come up with alternative solutions instead of just being like, okay, I'm just going to blindly kind of trust whoever's, telling me what to do. Listen to your gut. If your gut's telling you, hey, not a good idea right now, don't do it. We're going to have a lot of people who are going to be thinking like this the next week or two. There's going to be a lot of really strong intuitive kind of gut feelings, Anyway, I hope that that's helpful and answers your question, Matt. Definitely let me know what happens. All right, we've got Heather and then Kate and then Austin. And those of you guys who are still checking in, you can sign up and get in the queue. No, it doesn't seem to be super serious. Yeah, look for a good referral. Maybe ask your therapist and see if they have a hypnotherapist, or you can do like hypnotherapy tapes. You can listen to like audio, right? You could do that when you're laying down before you're going to sleep. That would work with some of the transits too. It would be really helpful. All right, so we are going to take Heather. So we're now moving to the people who are in the queue. Let me pull that up here. All right, Heather, January 23rd, 81, aka Glowing Therapist. Just anything you see. Currently working 2 remote jobs. Had an interview today for a potential of a 3rd job. I have the need for freedom in every shape and form. Running out of space. Just give me what you see. What's up, Robbie? The goat. All right, so interesting stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of like pivoting going on for my Virgo risings. Post eclipses, lots of changes personally. Obviously, Mercury is the ruler of your chart and also your 10th house. And so this is a pretty active week for a lot of my Virgo and Virgo risings because Mercury is coming into shadow. So you're going to see some of the conjunctions happening over the next couple of days where Mercury, the mind, is going to be meeting with Mars. Really persuasive, very much about communication, negotiating, communicating what you need when it comes to resources, trying to find ways to better connect with other people to make money. And it can mean that there is like a pivot going on either in the way you're traveling, so things like your vehicle, the way you're communicating, things like your job, things that you're learning, anything connected to the mind is the 3rd house. I would just be mindful of the fact that with Mercury conjunct Mars, there can be a tendency to kind of leap into things and do something very quickly without thinking it through. And so, Mars doesn't just rule, your 8th house of joint finances and money, it rules the 3rd. So it could mean like, is there exhaustion? Is there burnout this week because you're taking on too much? Are you communicating too much? Are you working too much? Are you feeling like you're just always on a phone or a tablet or a computer or going back and forth with people in meetings, right? It's coming into a square with your natal Mercury and your Mars. So it's going to be about, pacing yourself, taking a breath, making sure that you're not getting kind of wound up in the day-to-day work and responsibilities and communication related themes. The other thing that's happening right now is, you're going to see that conjunction happen and then it's going to retrograde back. So it makes me feel like if you are taking a job, it's going to be about you, getting into a job and then trying to balance your schedule and trying to figure out how it's going to kind of work around some of the other ones. And also, Mercury going retrograde in your 4th house, whole sign, in November is going to be about potential changes that's happening on the home front or like your home office, or maybe changes revolving around gadgets, cars, family. A lot of my Virgo and Virgo risings are either going to be going back and visiting family. They're going to consider making changes in their home environment. So it could be moving, but it could also be just organizing and decluttering things and getting out of the house, right? So it can also be a really good opportunity for you to be like, okay, I need to break some time throughout the day and like go for a walk, or I need to actually like get out of the house if you're working from home or working remotely. Starting a walking routine, a biking routine, getting outside can be really good with this retrograde. She says, I need to address health, but I'm always a worker, and I've been thinking also I need to slow down. Well, naturally when Mercury retrogrades, we slow down, right? That's what happens if you're a Virgo rising. And that means that you're taking time to not be so consumed with work and also wearing yourself out and kind of like integrate and get settled. So that's what I'm saying. Going for a walk, getting settled in the house, starting a journaling or a walking routine can actually ground that energy out. And the retrograde is going to trine Saturn and Neptune. So like makes more time for relationships. It makes more time for working with a therapist, talking to an astrologer, like getting support. Like I think a lot of Virgo and Virgo risings would really benefit for, you know, I mean, obviously you have a lot of work and you have like a client-based business if you're working, but you know, working with somebody who can support you. I think that's been the biggest theme that I've seen with like my Virgo risings as the South Node goes through your sign. Kind of takes the winds out of your sails. You can feel a little bit depleted and kind of exhausted, and like your usual go-to method of just working through things actually doesn't work. So it's encouraging you throughout this transit. The trines to Saturn and Neptune is like, yeah, work with a therapist, work with a healer, work with a reader, you know, work with somebody who can kind of give you the necessary emotional or spiritual tools to help you communicate and think differently. Now, in a literal sense, the retrograde could also mean in the third that you're changing something about your travel plans. Maybe it means that there's a change that happens with a car or a vehicle. Maybe there is a gadget that kind of has a breakdown. So take that into consideration too, that there can be some necessary improvements. You know, a social media break checks out here, working on a website or learning new skills when it comes to communications or anything that's job related with communications can also be another theme. And she says, yes, I've been thinking about scheduling a walk in the neighborhood. I set alarms and everything. That's your third house. Mars is alarms and Mercury is an alert. So it's about being like, ding, okay, it's time for me to go for my walk. Actually, a great way to use that transit. If you have to put it into your schedule or if there needs to be a reminder, maybe you're working with like an app or you're working with like an Apple Watch or something that's going to also count your steps. That could be something else that you could do. But just getting out of the house will give you a much needed kind of break and reprieve from like what feels like a very like monotonous schedule if you're working as much as you're working. South Node is also up on your moon. And that means that there can be lots of, you know, emotional fluctuations. For the most part, you're about out of it, but the last month has been a lot, and that does bring up some moodiness, and it also feels like an emotional clearing out. There can be some family stuff that can also be coming up with that. And a reconnection when it comes to friends and goals. So Jupiter actually, you know, is in the sign of the moon. It's sextiling your moon. So this is also about focusing on your long-term goals, having female community, friends that you can kind of spend time with to kind of help balance some of this stuff out. That's all trining Mercury and Mars. So it's like, great, you're going to go for a walk, but you could also catch up with your friends. You could give somebody a call. You could make plans. You could go walking with your friends. You could be talking to them about what they've got going on in their life, or you could be talking to them about relationships. And it's like literally walking and chewing gum at the same time. Like that's very much the third house, is kind of finding ways to kind of do two things at once. She goes, yeah, I've had to step away from the news and be more silent and alone because I've been emotional. I'm not good with water, too much emotion. And yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. I was like, people who have a lot of fire and air in their chart, like all the water this week is going to feel a little like you're kind of like drowning. So if you have to take a step away from like media or what you're reading or what you're listening to, great, do it, right? Mercury will come in conjunction with the sun, which means like a social media detox or not listening to the news or the radio could actually be something that's really great for you, and you could replace that time with something else that's going to be a little bit more kind of uplifting, and it's going to really shift your frame of mind. So I think that that's a good way to do that. And you might be like listening to podcasters, or there could be, you know, content or media that you want to listen to that has absolutely nothing to do with the news cycle. It could be more about self-improvement, letting go of trauma, healing, all of that kind of like Scorpio stuff, even financial stuff, if that's something that interests you, that you can kind of fill the void and kind of feel like it's helping you have like a little bit of like a mental reset. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Heather. Good luck on that. Definitely a lot of my Virgo risings are needing to slow down, and that's what you guys are kind of learning throughout this process. So I hope that it goes well for you. All right, we have got Kate. Let's see, let me pull up this. And this is KC and CA Sinistry. All right, so KC and CA. There we go. So there's that chart. And we'll pull up the other one, which is CA. You're very welcome. All right, so Casey says, I am December 11th, 75 at 8:16 a.m. in Fairfield, California. CA is March 4th, 1980, at 3:14 a.m. in Hendricks, Minnesota. So we're looking at the synastry. Casey, this is your chart, the Sun in Sag, Capricorn rising, and the Moon in Aries. And you have got CA, which is a Sag rising. Wow, you guys are only about a degree or two apart in terms of your rising sign. And they have a Sun in Pisces and a Moon in Libra. All right, so she says, all right, great friendship and emotional relationship. They are coming out of a huge financial mess with the mom of his 16-year-old son. Do you see us stepping in soon? Charts are lit up. So just to confirm, is this like relationship? Because you're saying friendship, emotional relationship. Obviously, they're coming out of like a huge change with the mom of his 16-year-old son. So looking at CA's chart first, I mean, yeah, kind of, chart is getting lit up. You know, we've got Saturn and Neptune. That's been at the most southern part of the chart, squaring the ascendant and the descendant, which means there's like a whole dissolving and changing going on of the inner world, the family, the relationships, concluding, coming to an end. And it's been messy and emotional. And that's still going to continue until the new year, okay? Until Saturn and Neptune are no longer squaring the ascendant or the descendant, that will continue until next year. So you're looking at until February. Mercury retrogrades in March, you know, changes on the home front are going to come, really trying to kind of finally, you know, detach themselves from any like relationship hangups or communication with people. Unfortunately, there's a lot of financial entanglement that they have with relationships because Mercury is retrograde conjunct the Sun. The Sun rules the 8th. And this all opposes Jupiter and Mars. So it's like joint expenses or that person's expectations for support or how much money they've spent or debt that they've dealt with. The last 2 years with the eclipses and Saturn in opposition to this has been like, it's almost like that's been what's tied them together, but it's gotten to a point where it almost looks like it's been so bad. It's like, well, there's nothing left to lose. Now we really need to dissolve this. Communication is not going to be easy for either one of you guys as you're going through the Mercury retrograde. That's going to kind of be happening in the 12th house. So something to keep in mind is both of you guys are going to be feeling a little bit more introspective. And there's definitely going to be a sense also of reevaluating or reassessing you know, what you want in relationships, maybe feeling like you're not getting a lot of clarity, maybe feeling like you're having to kind of wash out, you know, old relationship habits. And so many of the themes, especially for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, is about going through that clearing and like healing so that way you can show up and communicate and be more present in relationships at the end of the year. Obviously, Mercury rules their 7th. And so like right now, the North Node is conjunct their Mercury. And it's retrograde, so it's about like a karmic relationship coming in and like helping restore their value and giving them confidence and making them feel wanted and heard. And there can be a restructuring that's going to go on in terms of finances. That's going to take a couple years, but it is kind of starting now that the North Node is going into the Placidus 2nd house. Now, your guys' astrology is interesting. Let's pull up your chart. Because you are a 1 degree Capricorn rising and Sun in Sagittarius in the 12th. You've got Mars, you know, in the 7th household sign. So you're no stranger of being like, you know, I'm on my own or I'm doing my own thing. And then wham, here come these like karmic relationships where I'm dealing with people who are still getting out of relationships or you're getting out of relationships. And then, you know, somebody kind of comes along. What's happening, you really need to think about this because Saturn and Neptune are conjunct your moon right now. And that's going to be a very big transit, especially going into the new year. So Saturn is you. It represents boundaries or anything revolving around karma, limitation, responsibility, hard work. Moon is partners. And so As Saturn has been in conjunction to your moon, there's been a new relationship that has shown up, or you have felt really fiercely protective of them, or you have been feeling like, oh, I want to help them, or I'm communicating with them, or I'm like envisioning a new life or like a living situation, which could include them. Sun and moon, Saturn and moon together is you and another person. What's tricky is it's at 0 degrees, which means it actually has to be a fresh start, right? Everything has to be cleared out from the past. And Neptune is there as well. So you're dealing with like somebody who's like a damsel in distress, but it doesn't sound like it's a damsel. It kind of sounds, you know, more or less like there's something going on where they're just trying to kind of get themselves out of this reoccurring kind of relationship pattern where they're kind of lost or isolated or alone. And so it almost feels like you're a part of that process. Positive is it can bring stronger bonds and unions if both parties are willing to start fresh and new. Negative is that Saturn moon can represent emotional trials that can kind of happen with home or living situation, especially with partners, and waiting for partners to be more like assertive or like stand up for themselves. And Neptune, you have to be kind of careful because there is this tendency to be like, oh, I just want to kind of shelter them and take them in from the cold. And like if they haven't really dealt with their problems and you're moving them in or you're playing house with them, it can kind of create some challenges or some issues in that department. So it's really about ensuring that they're going to take accountability, they're going to stand up, they're going to be responsible, they're going to be committed, and they're really willing to like start fresh when it comes to new relationship habits with a new person. The synastry of your guys' chart together, so let's look at that. So we have got, there we go. So CA is on the outside. Obviously, their Neptune is very close to your Sun and your Mercury, so it feels mystical and magical or kind of otherworldly, or that you can kind of read each other. You also have their North Node, their Mars, and their Jupiter in your 8th, so it's very potent. Like there's a really strong attraction and bond, and it can be like very life-changing. You have their Juno in your 7th, which is good for relationship and partnership. Their Venus is conjunct your Chiron, so they can come in and they can actually help you throughout your Chiron return that you've been going through, heal issues revolving around feeling like you're worthy of having a home or a family or like a solid, you know, relationship situation. Like I'm looking at your chart with your moon at 0 degrees and Mars in an opposition to like Sun, Mercury, and Neptune. You're no stranger to relationships that break down or they don't work, and like conflicts that can happen in relationships, and like the feeling like you need to kind of retreat from other people because, you know, it could be like too combative. So it looks to me like this person's coming in and they're kind of activating some of that with some of the oppositions and squares, and you're like, oh, I see a lot of myself in this other person. Like been in some of those situations, can give them feedback, and like vice versa. Obviously Pisces and, you know, Sagittarius, they're mutable. So even though, you know, they've got Sun and Mercury in Pisces, you have a really strong 12th house signature. So like Mercury, Neptune, and the Sun in the 12th house means you kind of are very similar to like a Pisces in terms of your energy. It's got a Sagittarius flare, so you're going to be a little bit more active and kind of outward than some of the other 12th house placements. Your Mars and Venuses. So we have got your... Let's see, we've got your Mars receives a sextile from their Venus. So check, they see each other there. And then their Mars comes into a sextile with your Venus. So they see each other, right? So, I mean, you know, you guys don't have any issues in that department. I'll just tell you that 8th house synastry is very intense, and it does force some kind of major transformation psychologically, financially, you know, karmically. And also, you know, your Pluto is conjunct their moon. So moon Pluto is about purging toxic emotional patterns, be that family, home, relationship, Libra. So like, do you feel like you've gone through a lot of similar kind of toxic relationship dynamics, and like now you're kind of giving feedback or supporting them as they're trying to kind of remove themselves from that situation? Because that's kind of how I see it. Your Venus squares their Saturn, so there obviously some financial challenges or hangups, but that's part of having Saturn in your whole sign 8th house, is like you will attract people that have either security issues, self-esteem issues, financial issues, and you may not always resonate with that because this is the chart of somebody who's like a mover and a shaker, or somebody who's really kind of like, okay, well, if something doesn't work, whether it's a relationship or a job, like I'm going to change it. So you're a little bit more flexible, I think, in being able to kind of make things happen in the financial department. Let's look at the composite. So I'm going to look at the midpoint. So the midpoint composite, you have a Capricorn rising, a moon in Capricorn, and your sun and your Venus are in Aquarius. Look at that. I love when I see that in a composite chart, because the Sun Venus conjunction is probably about as good as it gets when it comes to a relationship chart. Obviously, it's in Aquarius, so it's going to be an unconventional relationship that really starts as a friendship, which is kind of what you said. And Pluto is there right now, right? It's been there all year, so it's been bringing up major changes and transformations in the way that you look at friendships and also what relationships can be. And Mars has been in opposition to that. Mercury has been in opposition to that. This gets really good like January, February. Like when Pluto, Mars, Venus, all these planets hit this, I feel like it's going to be different. And also, as we get into next year, when Saturn and Neptune go into Aries and it's going to conjunct, it means both of you guys are committing in the spring, February through like April, to being like, if we're going to do this, we need to have a clean slate. We need to like leave the past in the past. And I think that's really important considering Saturn's going to hit the South Node. I think you guys will talk a lot about that. Maybe it's important, it's been a foundation of your friendship, knowing what you've been through and where you come from. But I feel like if you enter into what will be a relationship, it's about not carrying that into the relationship. Especially because you guys also have North Node conjunct Pluto. So it means that the relationship's going to change the way that both of you guys kind of look at and perceive relationships, and you'll learn a lot from each other. And because this chart's ruled by Saturn, Saturn transits are going to be really significant, both transit Saturn as well as Saturn in the natal. And the natal composite is at 28 degrees of Leo. So right now, Uranus is squaring that, and it's going to square it for like the better part of like the next 6 months or so. And that tells me that really, I think there's going to be more of like a leveling up to see what this could be relationship-wise. Starting for you more so in like February, March, April, when all these planets come into conjunction with Venus and the Sun, and then it starts to kind of subside. And next year when Jupiter goes direct in your 7th house, I think you're going to see more like relationship growth and potential. But this is setting the stage this next year for what could be, the end of 2027, end of 2026, going into the beginning of 2027. In the first house, Venus, Sun, and Mercury is like, everybody needs to be really in tune with who they are, what they need, how they can kind of better themselves to better show up in a relationship. And with Mars in opposition to all of this stuff, it makes me feel like there needs to be some relationship kind of review or untangling before you guys can really personally evolve and then come together in a new way. She says, we both have deep loss. My partner of 7 years suddenly passed, and he had a really hard childhood. Father passed, and he's had lots of loss in his life. He didn't want to bring me into his mess. He wants to clear it up first. Yeah. And so, the fact that you guys can maintain and have some kind of like friendship and like relationship that's platonic in the process of, like waiting to see if this could be romantic, that's such a beautiful example of like the Sun, Venus in Aquarius, right? And with Pluto being there, that's like, let me work on myself first before I can like truly be the person that I feel like you deserve, is a testament to the transit, I think, in itself. So it'll be interesting to see when these things kind of come together. I mean, for sure, both of you guys are on to wanting to lay new foundations for the future. And I think that I would just really be watching as Pluto is waking up and it's conjunct, your Sun and your Venus until about December of this year. And then when, Venus and the Sun and Mars come into conjunction at the end of January, there could definitely be a shift. And then we will see what happens as, Jupiter also wakes up in your 7th house from like March on. There could be more relationship potential and opportunity that's going to be explored, especially as you're kind of going like into, the summertime. She says, Pluto has also been opposite my Saturn as a Cap rising. Yeah, it has been. And that is also a lot of the same stuff. It's a lot of like somebody going, no, I'm working on myself. No, not yet. And this is about you also like not allowing that to make you feel like you're not good enough or you're not worthy enough, and like also restraining from getting financially involved in like their entanglement. And that's still going to kind of hang out for a little bit. Saturn retrograde in the 7th is a delay with relationships because of what, right? Money, kids that are involved, expenses that are involved. And Pluto's going to oppose that for a little bit, but it's going to start to separate in the springtime. So I would really watch the Saturn-Neptune conjunct your moon if it's, him showing up in a way that's like, I'm ready, I want a fresh start, let's give it a go, let's see what happens. Like that could very much happen next year, and it might be also influencing you guys talking about ultimately where you are going to be living or what's kind of going on with your home and your family dynamics, right? Good on you. I've probably seen about a dozen or so Sun, Venus composite charts in the last like year and a half that are going through that Pluto transit. 9 out of 10 of them are not succeeding. They're getting to a point in the relationship that's like, nope, this is not going to work. This is toxic. It's a dead end. So if you guys are having that clear communication where you're like, you know, we care enough about each other to be able to maintain this friendship until it could be something more, that's a much healthier, I think, expression of that energy than what I'm seeing other people kind of like endure. So good for you guys. Let me know what happens, especially come the beginning of the year. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, we have got Austin. What's up, Austin? June 6, 94. Let's see what Austin says. I'd like a general reading for things to watch out for in the coming days, months, into the beginning of next year. What people, events, or realizations can I expect to come in or out of my life? What's up, dude? Sag rising, sun in Gemini, moon in Taurus. I would say buckle up, put your big boy shorts on, because the next month is going to be kind of interesting here. Is there any Sag risings that are like a early degree Sag rising? I'd be curious to hear what you guys are kind of experiencing with Mercury and Scorpio, because, you know, Mercury is going to go through the 12th house. It's going to kind of hang out here for a little bit, and then it's going to enter into Sag at the end of the month. And when it does enter into Sag, it's going to go retrograde, so it's in shadow. And Mercury rules your relationships and it rules your career and your status. You're going to find that there's a huge shift in the way that you're communicating with other people. So it doesn't matter if it's with your siblings, Gemini, it's with your neighbors, Gemini, it's with a romantic partner, 7th house, if it's coming back to this reading and listening to it next month, if it's shifting your perspective about work, maybe finding it difficult to communicate with people at work, that could be another way of looking at it. It's going to be a process. And so when the Mercury retrograde starts around November 9th, it's going to be with Mars. And Mars represents all of your subconscious hidden fears, things that you repress, stuff you're not talking about, things that need to get out in the open. And it's going to ruffle a few feathers because it's going to oppose Uranus and Gemini. What's interesting is on top of that, you're a Gemini sun. So you're going to hear for, you know, your horoscope, if you listen to your sun sign, relationship changes, things shifting in terms of your relationship with family, or, you know, maybe going back and forth with somebody from the past. I think it's going to be about a change in your communication style and how you're approaching other people. That's how I see it, because you're going to have it both ways. Communication can be a little tricky, and it looks like Mercury is actually going to retrograde right over your natal Pluto. So you might be seeing some of the intensity, the fear, you know, kind of feeling a little hermity coming up at the end of October. Definitely get your rest and take care of yourself. And then the retrograde will start around the 9th, and it's going to retrograde back into your 12th house over your Pluto. And anybody who's got North Node conjunct Pluto, from an evolutionary perspective, you guys are a reluctant soul. You guys keep coming back, you keep reincarnating, and then at this time the universe was like, nope, now we're going to make you deal with this. We're going to make you, you know, finally uncover and deal with the trauma or the pain or the fear or the personal power which comes with the Pluto North Node. In the 12th house, I don't remember which astrologer it was that I read this, but I read this one time that was saying if you had Pluto in the 12th house, it's almost like it's a collective, it's like you're like the garbage man or like the trash recycler for the collective, because Pluto represents trash and things that are kind of heavy, and the 12th house is about what's going on with the collective and subconsciously. So keep your bedroom clean, like keep it decluttered, maybe burn some incense, protect your space, and maybe burn some sage, or have like a wind down ritual at night. That involves heat or flames or doing a protection meditation, something like that. Because usually when you have Mercury retrograde with Mars in the 12th house, you'll have nightmares, and a lot of it can be like past life stuff that's coming up in your dreams, or it can be you just kind of picking up some of the stuff that's going on like in the ethers, where everybody's running around worried, anxious, mad, sad, angry, and you will be on the receiving end of that, unfortunately. So it's going to require you to be a little bit more in tune with, okay, I'm picking up some stuff. It's not my stuff. I'm going to filter it out, Because if you don't, it can manifest as, like feeling negative emotions and also bad habits that come out to play. Particularly things that are going to be tied to challenges in romantic relationships or, issues that are kind of coming up from childhood that is now coming back into your subconscious, and then it's like triggering some things. But you can avoid that through hot saunas, soaks, detoxes, getting out the negative emotions. Great time for like a shamanic like healing, or if you want to go and do like a meditation where you listen to shamanic drumming, because Mars can be about that. That can help purify and kind of clear stuff out of your space. But essentially, this energy is actually going to be starting in this next week. So you're going to have it going from now all the way to mid-December when the post-shadow actually happens. So a nice thing that you can do is you can find creative space or carve out time in your schedule or a private space where you can do creative work. Okay, so a hobby, if you want to do some drawing, if you want to do photography, if you want to create a nice little, hobby space where you can be, doing your arts and crafts, or maybe you decide you want to have a meditation corner. If you willingly say, I'm going to go and find a designated kind of hidden space and I'm going to be working on stuff or, clearing some stuff subconsciously, or working on my bedtime routine, cleaning out closets, the energy is going to be a little bit easier to navigate. But this is also about releasing fears, because this is where we kind of surrender in the 12th house to, what's worst case scenario with relationships? What's worst case scenario with your job? And I feel like so much of this is about surrendering and trusting the process that with the trines to Saturn, your family has your back, your ancestors as the 12th house will support you. They may even come and visit you in dreams. And also all of this energy is trining Jupiter in your 8th. And you don't see it because Jupiter, at this point, he's retrograde. He's also hidden in the 8th house. But this is a lot of financial changes. And so it's like some Sag and Sag risings are going to have windfalls. They're going to have inheritances, breakthroughs, bonuses, money that's going to be coming from unexpected places that's going to make them sigh a sigh of relief and go, oh, now I can rest, or I can take a couple extra days off, or I can go on a vacation, or now I can focus on my healing. So there's going to be something like that that's basically going to be happening throughout the next month. And you'll be feeling much better and much more renewed, at least when like Mars is coming into your sign. So you're going to see at the end of November, it's getting better. But as you're getting into December and later December, when Venus, the Sun, Mars, and eventually Mercury sit on your ascendant, you're going to be like good to go. And whatever you have cleared out, whether it's emotional, or physical or psychological, needs to be cleared out. And a lot of it's going to be leading to new financial situations with the trines of Jupiter, renewed sense of also your faith in yourself, or, your beliefs in your home. And it's also going to be giving you, I think, better opportunities to strategize what your living or family or home situation looks like in the long term. So yeah, very emotional for a lot of my air and fire signs. How are you liking the North Node coming into conjunction with Saturn? That's a lot of like family karma stuff, especially with your Saturn at a 12. I don't know if it's like with your siblings or if it's about, healing relationship issues with family members that you're estranged from, or healing issues revolving around feeling like you don't know where home is. But as Saturn is creeping up on as the North Node is creeping up on your Saturn between now and the new year, it's bringing that up again. And I would like to see you maybe doing some like dream interpretation with Saturn at a 12 in the 3rd. It would be good also for you to be listening to meditations or podcasts on, emotional healing or past lives or anything kind of connecting to even divination could be really beneficial with that nodal conjunction. Anyway, I hope that that's kind of helpful. Let me know what happens, and if it's you or another person that kind of pivots or changes gears in terms of relationships. It could be a very significant relationship time where people who are meant to leave your life the next 2 months, they will, to make space for people who are kind of like meant to come in potentially. You're welcome. Readings are open. We're going to call last call soon. So if you guys want to get in the queue. All right, so we now are at the point where I can go and put these other charts in. So let's look at that. Thank you guys for your patience. Oh, hey, Rosie, I'm sorry I didn't see you. I will add you to my list. I'll take you next. Are you still here? All right, so we've got, let's see, who was that? Jala. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to put these charts in really quick. If you guys want to get in, I recommend getting in now before we call last call. Here we go. We got Jala. Rosie. And Rosie, can you just confirm your birth info for me? Was it March 15th, 84? Thank you. All right, so Rosie, I'll take you first. And then we have everybody else. So Jaya, Mayad, Stephanie, Heather, Leah, you guys are all here. So last call, if you guys want to get in now. We're going to talk to Rosie, Capricorn rising, with her sun in Pisces and her moon is in Leo. Let's see what Rosie says. Let's see. All right, so Rosie says, peace and light, any red or yellow flags for the next 10 weeks or until the year is over, please and thank you. Red or yellow flags. I would say Saturn in your charts. Well, I mean, the fact that you're having retrogrades over your natal Saturn, which rules your chart, it's not necessarily a red flag, but it's definitely something that you want to watch. So you have got Saturn in your 10th house of career and work. Saturn is retrograde at a 16. So it's about your emotions revolving around changing circumstances with your relationships with your superiors, your job, your responsibilities at work. It could even be something about working with teams or friends at work, and a reevaluation of your goals. So today, Mercury is conjunct Saturn, which means you're really focused on productivity, health, kind of getting work done, getting things in order, and you're goal oriented. Mercury and Mars are coming together on top of your Saturn, which means there has been work, and more work in the last week or so. And Mercury is going to retrograde back around this next month. So something to kind of consider is that Capricorn risings are really gearing up, I think, the next couple of weeks between now and like mid-December to be like, who are my friends? Where are they at? What are my goals? What am I getting done in terms of my career? How can I be more productive? Where am I afraid or resisting change? And you could be dealing with some friends that are a little prickly, right? And people from the past or past situations can come back up because your Saturn is at a Cancer degree. Now, what I like about this is that it's sextiling your Jupiter. So it means it's enhancing your confidence, your communication, your relationships. It's, really pumping up the opportunity to socialize, get out and about and do things with people. And maybe reconnecting socially or seeing friends that you haven't seen in a while can actually be really beneficial. And it's like a time that you want to surround yourself with people who are inspiring you to be more of a go-getter, or people who are showing you that, they support the person that you're becoming. Now, there can be some toxic friendship clearing out that can happen. There can also be a sense of cleaning house on social media or not wanting to kind of, partake in certain debates online. Yes, I would steer clear of all of that stuff. Saturn is retrograde back in Pisces. So not only is your chart ruler on the move, but it's now coming back into conjunction with your sun. And the sun is dealing with transformation, psychological themes, changes when it comes to romantic relationships, intimacy, vulnerability. So there's a lot of reflecting during the retrograde on, how am I communicating? What do I need? What am I cutting back? So a lot of it can be about listening more and speaking less. And it can also be like social media detoxes that can be coming up. Some big career stuff happens when Saturn's on the sun. I mean, I think thankfully, you have some trines that ease this a little bit, where if you're focused on your goals, you can kind of be mind over matter and really focus on getting through it and maybe communicating in a different way where you're more intuitive in how you're navigating dealing with people at work. This is also about learning a lot about self-analysis, healing, psychological matters, divinatory stuff, the occult, all kind of 8th house things that might be more hobbies. But Saturn and the sun does test you. And so you've been through it in this last year. It's coming back into conjunction again, pretty much now until January. And it's not going to hit your sun again exactly. It's about as close as it's going to get the next month. And she says, I've forgotten my social media this year. That's great. I think that's part of it. Part of the kind of cutting or kind of changing things can come with ease when you have, planets that are kind of in Pisces or trining other things. So probably for you, it's felt like therapeutic, not being as kind of involved or kind of like doing stuff on social media. Maybe it's giving you a little bit more peace of mind, but you may feel like during the retrogrades, you're like popping back in, or you're checking on people, or, you're reconnecting with people. Maybe you're realizing just how much people are kind of absorbed in social media, and you're like, what's going on? I don't feel like I'm connecting with others. So that's possible. But for the most part, this is going to be about getting on track with really reevaluating and reassessing who your friends are and what your goals are going to be in terms of your professional life. And that's really what you want to kind of show up for. She says part of growing up is planning to get a tattoo at the end of the month, made some peace with this body. That can be part of it. And it's funny, Sun-Saturn transits, I've seen Sun-Saturn transits and Sun-Mars transits manifest as stuff revolving around tattoos for some reason, because Saturn can be permanent and like it is the skin. And if you have it, trining Mars and Scorpio, like needles. But it can be whatever you're getting is like symbolic and like deeply kind of connected to having gone through like a major change and a transformation and wanting something that's kind of a symbol or paying like homage to that period of your life. And it could be like memorial. It could be also something spiritual because of the Saturn-Neptune vibe. If you're going to do anything like that, I would say, try to do it when some of the transits are going to be like in a trine. So the closer that we're getting to November, the closer that we're getting to Mercury retrograde, although I don't really see it impacting, doing anything to your body in particular. But even this Mercury, Mars is going to be right on top of your Saturn. So you're maybe asking people for referrals, or you're kind of going and searching online and trying to find an artist, or maybe you're like really particular about, you know, finding a really good studio or making sure that it's going to be the best artist or making sure that they're really like taking their time, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think that, you know, if that's something that you're doing now, try to do it when Mars is coming into a trine with Saturn. That would definitely be better. So I don't know if you have an appointment set, but you're going to have a transit when the Moon and Mars are together, October 21st and 22nd, that's trining Saturn. And you're also going to have the Moon that's going to come into a conjunction with Saturn and trine Mars, which is going to be closer to November 1st. These are all good aspects, and it's also happening before the Mercury retrograde. So let us know, what are you getting a tattoo of? Where are you getting it? I've been feeling that itch too, which is weird. I haven't had a tattoo. I haven't gotten a tattoo in 4 years, but there's something very specific that I have wanted for the last couple of years, and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to get it. So I'll let you guys know. All right, so hopefully that's helpful, Rosie, and we're going to take Jala. Oh, see, tribute to grandma. I love that. Maybe that's the trine to Jupiter in your 7th, grandparents. All right, so I've got Jala here, August 5th, 89, 12:50 a.m. And that was a Gemini rising, Sun in Leo, and Moon is in Virgo. That looks fun, all of these South Node transits and the eclipses. Okay, so they say, I feel like I'm about to have a career shift, but I'm scared. Seems like this new spiritual career is financially unpredictable and chaotic versus my old career as a designer. How do I time the transitions, as it seems I'm being called to rest more too? Yeah, girl. Saturn in Pisces vibes. Wait till Neptune gets back in there too. I was struggling so much with that earlier in the year when Saturn and Neptune were in Pisces, and it was in my 6th house, and I was like, I have so much work to do, but I need to rest. And I'm feeling that kind of coming back again. So that's part of it. Just collectively, there is a sense of needing to release, unwind, rest, and like wait until we recharge our batteries, because 2026 is going to be a year for the books. Like everybody's going to be hitting the ground running kind of February on. And something that I have seen is that, because I have a lot of friends that are, you know, astrologers, tarot readers, psychics, mediums, healers, like a lot of them. And we always seem to get hit with this stuff before it happens collectively. And maybe that's kind of like the blessing and the curse of seeing what's coming in. But I have found it's always like a couple of months before like some of these major aspects and conjunctions happen, we get the wave of it, and we have to experience it because we're like, oh my God, this is what we're going to be going through. And then we like help other people. It's weird. I had that happen in 2019. It was like 6 months prior to 2020. I was going through all of the pandemic preparations in a weird way, and I didn't know why. And then the pandemic happened. So that I'm kind of getting like PTSD from that. Anyway, so, you know, in your chart, part of what's going on is that Saturn and Neptune are retrograding back from Aries into Pisces. So that means that you've got Saturn, Lord of Karma, responsibility, and anything revolving around commitment and kind of growing up. Neptune, which can be about spirituality, can also be about illusions, going back into your career house. So you're like, what am I going to do? Is this stable? Is it not stable? Is work slowing down? Is it going to be dependable and reliable? What do I do? Positive is that Jupiter is just chilling in your 2nd house of money all year. Yes, it will retrograde next month, but it is trining Saturn and Neptune. So it means that if you're showing up and you're clear about the vision and the commitment, and the North Node is being there going, you're going to try something new. This is different. You haven't done this before. It's kind of outside of your wheelhouse. Like, it makes sense to be uncomfortable. As the South Node swings through Virgo and you're seeing eclipses in Virgo in your 4th house, it's getting out of the house, old outdated ways of being, you know, and you have to give yourself a little bit of grace because this is sitting now conjunct your moon. This is usually a time where people are like more emotional than usual. They need rest more than usual. They need nourishing foods. And this can mean that you're feeling the effects of, you know, some kind of loss or destabilized situation. The moon moves very quickly, revolving around security and home, right? And so it can mean that you're like, well, do I downsize? Do I move? Do I go back home? Do I make changes in my expenses? Yes, budgeting is a good idea, but the moon's going to come out of the conjunction with the South Node within like the next couple of weeks. Then the South Node is going to hit Venus, which is going to be bringing up opportunities for more being in nature, retreat, isolation, spirituality. It would be a really good idea also for you to consider or contemplate like incorporating essential oils or working with herbs or anything like relating to crystal or like earth elements when the South Node hits that, to help you navigate some of the changes that's kind of happening energetically, and a lot of things that are going to help you ground. So you want to work with like earth stuff. I think that knowing that you have the North Node natally in your 10th house conjunct the midheaven means that you are destined for greatness. You may not see that, but like the storyline of the South Node in the 4th house, North Node in the 10th is like move away from home, leave your home country, go to a new place, like figure your life out, and then end up kind of finding this like amazing career path. And this is ruled by Saturn and Uranus, which is in the 8th. Healing, occult, metaphysical, things connecting to, you know, regeneration, rebirth, and like, yeah, crazy stuff, right? But a lot of the 1989ers, 1990ers have this conjunction. And right now it's a test of faith. The Saturn and Neptune are coming into a square with all the Capricorn in your 8th of joint finances and the Cancer in your 2nd of personal resources. And it means that your goals revolving around your career and your community is shifting. And what would be really beneficial for you, so you don't feel like you're just out in the open, kind of just, you know, floating out there, not having any kind of assistance, is like finding your tribe. Saturn and Neptune going into your 11th house is about finding a community, starting a community, getting more active physically out with people, connecting with other spiritual entrepreneurs, I think would be really great. So networking events, workshops, fairs, you know, things like that you want to go to. And that's also going to be supporting a sextile to Uranus in your sign. So it's going to help you navigate some of these more spontaneous changes in your career, feel good about flying your freak flag and being different and not like being, you know, like everybody else. And I think that as you get into the next year, with the South Node eclipses in your 4th house, it's getting you out of the house, it's making changes emotionally, kind of breaking with the past, because you are now opening up to a brand new kind of future when it comes to your professional life. Jupiter's going to hit your sun next year, so you have something to look forward to, especially with the eclipses that are coming up. That's kind of saying you might start writing, teaching, podcasting, doing media, websites, anything revolving around like local education. And your sun at a 12 is cool. Like, do you do hypnosis, meditation? Do you do like past life regression? What do you do? Because with some of those placements, it means that like you're very visual when it comes to like working, and you might do some kind of like healing work or modality with your hands, because that's the 3rd house. And it squares Pluto, so it's about detoxifying and helping people like rest and recharge. I did a past life regression. It was very helpful. You may have an interest in learning about some of that stuff. You may not see it yet, but when Jupiter hits that next year, that might be something that starts coming up for you. It might be another tool to your toolbox. That's how I know I'm supposed to go full spiritual. Yeah, I mean, and Uranus on your ascendant is like definitely kind of, like I said, flying your freak flag, and it's like a little bit more woo-woo than usual. It's not exactly conjunct yet, but next year when it hits your ascendant and then it starts squaring all the planets that you have in your 4th house, you might be like, it makes more sense for me to be kind of like a rolling stone or traveling, or have more flexibility with traveling and like what I'm doing for work, and not feeling like I have to be in one particular place. And that's starting to shake out some of that stuff now, you know, through the South Node eclipses. I would go and learn about having your North Node in the 10th house, because it talks a lot about what you're here to achieve, and that your, you know, career will transform many times in your lifetime. I do think that I would not be too worried about finances right now. I think it's going to improve, especially when the South Node comes off of your moon and your Venus. So that's going to be right around December going into January. And then Jupiter will come into a trine with Saturn. And there is going to be some like maybe some budgeting things that come up during the retrograde in Sag, but not too much in December. And then you're off to the races when these eclipses start happening in Aquarius in this next year, because February of next year, you're going to have a solar eclipse right on your midheaven, which is basically saying you're like, okay, we're moving forward. Now we are going to be busy. There is going to be a significant change going on with your career stuff, you know? So yeah, I mean, I think as somebody who's kind of been down that road of like having had a day job and being like, this is crazy, like I don't want to do this, and like resisting it, and then finally doing it, and then something that always kind of helped me is like something my mentor always told me was like, look, if you resist it, it's going to get harder. But if you just kind of like, you know, surrender and you're like, all right, fine, I'm here to help, like send the people show up. You know, if you build it, they will come type of stuff. But I'm curious to see what happens for you come the beginning of the year, because it looks like you're embarking on something new. And it might be a training program. It might be that you're going to be publishing or teaching something. But it looks like that's going to be when things are really going to start to ramp up with that eclipse right on your North Node. You're coming in your nodal return too. So when you're getting into like 37, 38, that's right when you have your second nodal return. And it's that hard realignment, you know, with destiny. There's going to be some important teachers that are going to come into your life that are going to help you with that. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, so we've got, let's see, Maid, and then Stephanie, and then Heather. I've been trying to understand Bazi as well. I have no idea what that is. I'm curious. All right, we've got Capricorn rising, Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Pisces. Says, what should I prepare for the next few months? It's been almost a year since my personal reading with you. Thanks, Candace. Oh, Chinese birth charts. Oh, that's cool. All right, well, let's take a look here. Miss ruled by Saturn. Your natal Saturn is smack dab in the middle of this Mercury retrograde that's coming up. So that's important. It looks like there's going to be some big shifts revolving around like planning with your career. Maybe there's going to be some surprise conversations with bosses or some redirection going on with like workflow. And that's going to happen when Mercury and Mars come in conjunction with Saturn. So you want to watch October 28th. It's a long window, sorry. October 28th through about, let's say, the 19th. Because that's where Mercury is going to hit your Saturn. Mars is going to retrograde over it. This is about changes with your health. So as a whole sign Capricorn rising, definitely be careful with international travel, health, and changes to your sleep patterns, because you can be feeling a little under the weather. And then the retrograde is going to go right over your sun. So it looks like, I mean, depending on what you've got going on work-wise, there could be a complete renewal, regeneration when it comes to your status at work, or somebody steps down and you move into a new place, or there's going to be some kind of change in the way that you're kind of, you know, moving forward with some of your professional goals. That's how I see it. Thankfully, I think the trines to Saturn and Neptune in your second house is pretty solid for money. And also the trines to Jupiter in your seventh house is good for support from relationships, therapists, partners, that kind of stuff. But yeah, you have several planets right in the line of fire. So you were born with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. So I think you'll navigate it better than most people. Maybe it's about your dreams and your intuition, you know, giving you some advice or some guidance on what direction you're supposed to be going with your social groups or with your career goals. I also would say that this is an important time to really wrap up or do your due diligence with Saturn and Neptune back in Pisces, because it's only going to be there for a couple months. And then a lot of Capricorn and Capricorn risings we'll see in the new year, kind of February through April, May. When Saturn and Neptune come together in Aries, it means that you might be moving, you might be traveling, you might be thinking about making some changes in regards to your home or family relationships. There can be a sense of going back home, visiting family, thinking about where you want to be long-term, going to a foreign land. You have the chart of somebody that I'm like, I wonder if there's going to be some changes going on at work, and you get the opportunity to potentially travel for work or kind of be stationed in another place or going to open up an office somewhere if you're in that type of work. And if that's something that you're interested in doing, because that could definitely happen. What you do want to be mindful of is that with Mercury and Mars conjunct as a Scorpio, a lot of it's about negotiations. It's going to be about, increasing your magnetism. So it's like a really good time, the first half of November, to be giving proposals, to be giving presentations. It's also a good time to be like initiating, group exercises, group meetings, network kind of events, social events. Like this is a time where business and pleasure can actually come together and they can mix very well. But as a Scorpio, it's a time where you're going to be going through some kind of like personal shedding and like changes of the way that you communicate, or the way that you kind of see yourself, or your role in your career. So there could be some things that seem like setbacks, but in the long term, any delays that are happening is happening for something else to kind of come in that could be better. Really great for relationship stuff. So I don't know what you've got going on there, but Jupiter in the seventh house, if you're in a relationship, it will enhance relationship communication and If you're not, through socializing and connecting with other people, you might meet someone. It also does bring up the opportunity to really invest more in your style, second house, in your personal resources, your self-esteem. And the North Node's getting really close to your moon, which is a beautiful transit. It makes you feel much more feminine than usual. It also means that you may have more of an interest in like luxury or anything connected to property or real estate. That is your whole sign third house. So that could also be about a relationship that you have with a sister or a sibling somehow improving or changing, or the way that you're kind of communicating and talking to like female relatives, like mothers or aunts. That could also be another theme. But the transit that's going to be impacting you the most pretty much between now and December is going to be that Mercury retrograde. So if you're keeping an eye on your health and your habits, if you're willing to make adjustments to those things, and also if you're open to either traveling for work or, you know, making time to kind of connect and network with people, I think it can be a little bit more fortuitous for you than some of the other signs. And then, you know, Uranus is now starting to come out of an opposition with Saturn. So that could also mean different workflows, different health practices and habits and routines. So if there's been some stressful changes with some of that stuff, it's going to kind of ease up a little bit. But now it's coming into an opposition with your sun, which you were going through that transit pretty much all last year. It does make it more difficult dealing with men. So brothers, husbands, fathers, particularly this is about communication with men. And I don't know if it's in the family or in the workplace, but watch for that, because usually when Uranus is opposing, you're trying to find ways to kind of manage people or manage things, and you're feeling like you're getting some resistance or some pushback that's kind of coming from them. They're like resisting your will, you know, and the ego can kind of get a little, get its feathers ruffled a little bit when you're going through that transit. I love that you're having your Venus return right around the time you're having your solar return, you're having a Mercury return. It's not unusual to have a Mercury or a Venus return around your birthday, but you're kind of playing with a lot of home field advantage here. So make the most of it, get out there and socialize and really focus on, you know, I think as like a Capricorn rising, coming out of what's going to feel like a little bit of hibernation mode and like pushing yourself to go out there and connect with people who I think are going to kind of help you really rework your definition of like friends. I think this, for a lot of Capricorn risings, they're going to realize who their friends really are and like who's got their back, and it's going to make you feel more secure in certain relationships, and it's going to make you maybe part ways with other ones. So let me know what happens. All right, we've got Stephanie and then Heather and then Leah. What's up, Stephanie? Stephanie is a Leo rising with the sun in Taurus, and her moon is in Cancer. And Stephanie says, hey, I started a business in April. It's been really slow moving. It's been challenging, but managing my full-time job, part-time job, and business. What can I do to bring in more stable business while also managing my responsibilities? All right, well, number one is, you know, even though you're a Leo rising, this is kind of mirroring on some of the transits that Virgo risings are going through, where they're kind of wearing more than one hat, right? Uranus and Gemini in the 10th house. So usually when it's in Taurus, it's a little bit slower, it's more routine, it's stable. Thankfully, Uranus going back into Taurus for the next couple of months, it may actually bring some stability. And I think you're going to see work, and more work, especially as you're getting into like December and January. Okay, so we're sitting in mid-October. So hopefully it's sooner, but still that's something to think about. Money is connected to your second house with Mercury, where over the last like month and a half, you had an eclipse there that was in opposition to Saturn, where you're like, I'm putting money into something, when is it going to pay off? You had a Mars South Node conjunction, which also probably made you feel super burnt out working and trying to focus on producing. A Sun conjunct the South Node, which did a lot of the same thing. And as an example right now, the Moon is conjunct the South Node, so it's just like emotionally feeling kind of like wiped out or worried and concerned about money and resources. When Mercury turns retrograde, it's going to turn retrograde in the part of your chart connected to Sagittarius in the 5th house, which is about your own business, self-employment, taking risks. And it is going to turn retrograde in opposition to Uranus, which means that you might be trying to kind of figure out who's my target audience, how can I get attention online, How am I, driving business or trying to get other people's kind of attention and getting creative with ways to bring in new clientele? I don't know what kind of a business it is, but that will happen. You will also see Mercury go retrograde into the 4th house. So you have to be mindful of like cost of living, expenses, working from home. Really want to be budgeting. Leo and Leo risings, as much as I know you guys hate this, you have to budget, because until the South Node leaves your 2nd house, this is about spending less, saving more, being more conservative. A lot of you guys are going to find that you can either work from home, which can bring in some income, or you can be doing some kind of work where you're clearing out your home, you're selling things, you're getting rid of stuff that's used. Yard sales, I keep telling you guys this is a good time to get rid of stuff, because Mercury and Mars are going to be meeting in the 4th house. There can be more tension also and frustration at home. So if you're spending a lot of time at home, you have to get out every now and then. You can't stay there for too long. Otherwise, that's going to kind of build up with that kind of mental pressure, especially going right over your Pluto. In fact, Mercury and Mars are going to meet right on your Pluto. So are you in a relationship? What's that, 19? Or it's going to be about your relationship to a family member, your relationship to your home. That's going to be revised in some way in the month of November. Now, Venus rules your job, while Saturn rules your day-to-day routine. Okay, so it looks to me like Uranus has yet to come into conjunction with your Venus. It's getting close. Mercury will turn retrograde in opposition to Venus, which means you almost like have to give yourself until the beginning of December to really reevaluate and reassess whether or not this is something that you can emotionally, physically, financially, continue doing. Don't throw in the towel yet, okay? Because I think you're going to have more stability when Uranus gets away from your Venus, and I also think you're going to have more stability as a lot of planets are going into Capricorn trining Uranus. What is your personal kind of side hustle or business? What is it that you're doing? Let's look at Pluto's coming up on your Saturn. Pluto's trining Uranus. I think that's why you're able to do more than one thing right now. It's like you're pivoting and changing something about your work. You got to be really careful with burnout though. Okay, wellness therapy. So my thought is where are you doing this? Are you like consulting? Are you seeing people in person? Are they coming to you? Are you going to them? Right? That's what I kind of wonder, because clients is going to be Saturn. So like all these planets are trining Saturn. So depending on how you see clients or you have customers in person at home. Okay. The Mercury retrograde is going to get you thinking about realistically, as much as I hate to say this, if you want to be doing business in your home, because Mercury retrograde is like, do I really want to have this energy in my home, or am I willing to make house calls, or am I willing to invest in new ways of doing this work? Pop-ups are great, but I would be putting more of an emphasis on being able to do sessions that could be remote. I think that would be beneficial with some of the transits. I also think that eventually, when Saturn starts coming into conjunction with Mercury, which won't be until like the end of 2026, beginning of 2027, that's when you have to be more concerned with what's going on with money, in my opinion. Because Saturn will be conjunct your money lord and Uranus will be conjunct Venus. Like to some extent you could juggle stuff, and I think that you'll be very busy towards the end of the year, come the new year, and maybe you're going to get a wave of business because so many planets are going into Capricorn where people are like, yes, I want to work on myself. Yes, I want to take care of myself, or I've got New Year's resolutions, or I want to kind of be bettering who I am. And you might see a nice bump December, January with work as planets go through your 6th house. I think it's too early to kind of throw in the towel with this, at least right now. It also looks like you're in you are in an annual perfection year 35, so that's a Cancer year. So you're in the 12th house year, at least until April, where everything feels like it's kind of like you can't quite see very clearly. You don't exactly know what you're going to be doing or what's up and down. And Jupiter is in that house, and that rules your work. So it's good for healing work, but I feel like it's not getting a lot of like visibility right here. So what will happen is when Jupiter goes retrograde over the fall, and then it's coming back into Cancer, I think you're going to see a lot of like private events, retreats, things that are going to be like pop-ups, but things that are going to be more private, or private clubs or healing centers. Those might be places that you want to look at. I'd start looking in December. December and January could bring a lot of that up. You'll do more social events February until about April. And then when Jupiter hits your moon, this is going to be better for working in private healing spaces and things that are going to be more secluded. That'll be kind of going into the summertime. And then it looks like Mercury is going to retrograde over your moon So I could see you actually being like, I'm going to stay with this until about next summer. I'm not going to give up, but it's going to have its peaks and its valleys. And there's definitely a huge bump, but I think an increase in work that's going to happen at the end of the year going into 2026 at the beginning of the year. And then you'll see another little peak that's going to happen again in like June going into July of next year. A lot of it's going to depend on like when you started the company. A lot of it's also the fact that, you know, your 10th house lord of career is in a double-bodied sign. It's Gemini. So it means you're like, I do this and I do that. And it's at a 9, so it's going to be something that's about, you know, teaching, working with groups of people, something revolving around like traveling and like having to go to places. And it's a little disjointed with your Pluto. It's also not making an aspect to Mars, which is why I feel like you're not always going to be able to do work at home. You're going to have to get out and socialize to do some of this work. But Pluto squaring your sun has certainly been putting the pressure on you to change and transform your career, and it's trying to get you to do it through new relationships and like new professional or romantic dynamics. So really this is going to be about networking with other practitioners and finding people whose work I think is going to be complementary to yours. So maybe if you're doing some kind of consulting or healing or whatever, you find other people who do something similar, but you can kind of like refer to each other. And, you know, Pluto is saying, because Pluto rules your home, once again, it does not want you to be doing this stuff at home. So if you want to be considering house calls, you can. If you want to be considering, you know, talking to people and like talking to them and doing some of this work digitally, or maybe you're doing some consulting, or you're, you know, eventually maybe getting into a space where maybe you're going to be working somewhere or providing your services somewhere, that could start up as early as the end of January, beginning of February with some of the transits that you're going to have. With eclipses going into the 6th house, that will also boost professional kind of collaborations and also the opportunity to be bringing in a lot more clients, especially with your descendant being at a 19. So be prepared that you're going to still have to juggle a little bit. You'll see peaks where you're going to be a little bit more busy, but it really won't be until summer of next year as Saturn's approaching Mercury and Uranus is approaching Venus that you're going to have to decide which one it's going to be. And Pluto's getting very close to your natal Saturn as well. So even that's saying the same thing. It's like this is about having a healthy, designated workspace that's not too entangled with your work, you know? Honestly, I just want to leave my full-time job. I think you'll be able to do that because Uranus will give you the freedom to do that when it hits your Venus. It's a little ways away. Like you'll have to gauge and see just exactly how productive December and January is. And you have to get through the Mercury retrograde in March in your 8th house where you can kind of sort out your finances. But it's possible that there is a segue that's going to be coming where you're kind of leaping from one thing to something else kind of summer of next year. But you have to stay consistent with it throughout some of these sextiles and trines to make sure that it's growing to the point where you can actually, you know, make that segue. And have faith that that'll happen, especially as you're coming into a 1st house year next year with your sun in the 10th house. It's like there is a lot of resting, healing, having some downtime and kind of questioning things. But this is kind of the quiet before there's some bigger shifts that are going to be happening for you during the solar eclipses and also in Taurus season right after your birthday next year. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Okay, I've got Heather. What's up, Heather? How's it going? You're welcome. I love to see what happens with your healing work. Keep on the good work. Heather is February 11th, 1979 at 8:49 p.m. in Hot Springs. And she's a Libra rising, 22-degree moon in Leo, sun in Aquarius. Look at that full moon. Heather, do you have a specific question for me or do you just want to know about this new moon? Take a look. So I'm looking at the Libra new moon, which as a Libra rising is still technically connected to your whole sign 1st house, okay, of self, identity, your goals. This is like the one time a year where you're like, okay, it's going to be all about me. So rather than making it be about other people or relationships or kids or work, it's like, what am I doing? You know, how am I investing in myself? And I like this new moon for a number of reasons. One is it's ruled by Venus and that's your chart ruler and it's in your domicile. So a lot of Libra risings, if they really want to focus on new health goals, changes to their appearance, changes when it comes to their personal style, if they're wanting to bring on some kind of personal change or transformation, this is a good new moon to kind of work with. It'll take 2 to 4 weeks to start to see the effects, but it can take all the way up to about 6 months to see the full kind of fruition of what comes from this. I was saying how it's in opposition to Chiron, so it's more about prioritizing self, and in order to do that, you know, it can ruffle a few feathers, and it might mean you need to take some space from relationships, partnerships, clients. It might also mean that, you know, because you're putting yourself first and maybe prioritizing self over career, right? Squaring Jupiter in the 10th, or some kind of parenting responsibilities. Or maybe it means that some of the decisions that you're making about what's best for you create some challenges in relations. Will be some of the themes over the next 6 months. I would just say don't overdo it, because Jupiter is squaring this new moon, which means doing too much at work or overwhelming yourself or being too involved can actually bring some relational issues where people feel like you're not always checked in or you're not always available. And you won't see this right off the bat. It'll be something that'll come, you know, kind of down the road. So keep in mind that 7th house people can help you, or they can also be people who are kind of making you feel like you're being held back from doing what you need to do. As an Aquarius sun, it's a beautiful new moon because this is going to be trining your sun and your Mercury. So it's opening the door to more creativity, more love, more self-expression, more fun, childlike nature, taking chances, risks, and, like hobbies. So for dating, for creativity, for anything revolving around self-expression, it's a great transit. It's about investing yourself in the things that you love and doing it in a more authentic way. I'm kind of like liking this because, you know, pretty soon we're going to start having eclipses in Aquarius in the 5th house at the beginning of 2026. And I think Libra risings are going to like learn how to like go and like play in the sandbox and like create and do things that they wouldn't typically do. And Aquariuses are also going to be really in tune with what does it mean to be different? What does it mean to kind of march to the beat of your own drum, or where you're kind of putting yourself first? So it's really opening the door to, okay, let me focus first on what I love. And as I'm building into it, will eventually be that full moon next spring in 2026. It's then going to be, well, how do I start expressing that? What do I create? Is it a relationship? Is it more about children and family? Is it going to be businesses? Is it going to be, you know, creative hobbies? And I think this is the time to start really asking yourself what you love and what you're willing to kind of invest yourself into. Mars is conjunct Uranus, so it's talking about financial risks that you're willing to take, or maybe some changes that's happening with where you're kind of positioning yourself when it comes to investments and money. Mercury is there as well, so there could be a little bit of tension subconsciously about, well, you know, is it going to be successful? Is it going to sell? Or are people going to be receptive of this? Or, you know, am I taking too many risks? But I don't think so. I think some of the trines of Saturn and Neptune is talking about timing and also focusing on making some significant changes to your health and your financial habits. While the trines to Jupiter is also kind of expanding and helping you really focus on prioritizing career growth and anything revolving around your professional status. So it's not exactly conjunct anything in Libra. It's a little wide to be in conjunction to your Pluto. I mean, it's within 9 degrees, but that in itself could be about changing and transforming the relationship that you have to yourself. Venus is close by and the moon is within about 9 degrees. So with Pluto in your first house, retrograde at 19, it means you're always kind of wavering and going back and forth, revolving around, well, what do I invest myself into, right? Do I have the power to make this move, make this change? And it's also about the changing relationship, the evolving relationship that you have with yourself. I would say, knowing that in this next year, Saturn and Neptune are going to go into your 7th house, it's really going to show you what relationships are made of. There's either going to be an ending of a relationship or a renewal of something new. And it's going to start coming into an opposition with this Venus point and also with your natal Pluto. So if partners can respect what makes you happy, what you love, what you enjoy, what you create, then there can be relational harmony, right? If not, then you're going to see that part of Pluto in the eclipses in the 5th house could be some relationship turbulence or some changes in the way that you create or feel loved. It can create a little bit of tension in relationships. Pluto is also in opposition to your Jupiter as well. So it also looks like a lot of this could be about wanting to make some major changes in some of your friendships or some of your financial, your professional goals. Certainly that does sometimes make you feel like there is some pressure, especially as Pluto is kind of inching into your 5th house. I'm a 0 degree Libra rising too. I'm going through a lot of the same transits. So I've been kind of like watching Pluto he's been dancing in and out of my 5th house. When he goes into my 5th house, it's major 5th house themes. When he goes into my 4th house, it's 4th house themes. So it's fun if you can be in tune to Pluto trine your ascendant, where you can be like, I can create in different ways. That's how I'm trying to use it. And I think the trines to Uranus is about shifts in your perspective when it comes to travel, education, culture, philosophy, children, dating, you know, all of that stuff. And it can bring more spontaneous trips. It can also mean there can be training or certifications or interests and other things that you want to learn, right? So it doesn't have to be formal education. It can be things that you're just, you know, wanting to kind of read up on, or things that you're wanting to teach yourself. Very interesting. I love that full moon. You're gonna get a kick out of when the eclipses start going through Aquarius in the new year, and you're gonna be like, it's time to fly my freak flag. I'm different, and it's gonna be like cool, because the way that you're gonna create and what you're gonna do is gonna be so different from other people that perhaps maybe you really finally start getting kind of credit for some of the unique kind of creative qualities that you possess over the next year or two. I'm excited that Saturn is finally making its last trip through my South Node and Descendant. Yeah, the South Node transit's done. The Descendant is it's kind of brutal because you have 0 degrees on all 4 angles. So, you know, that is a fresh start. So I always tell people, when you have 0 degree cardinal signs on the angular houses, especially they're all exactly 0 degrees. This basically means that there's seasons to your life. Okay, so when Saturn and Neptune come back into Aries, and when they conjunct in February, and February, March, April happens, you really have to pay attention to your relationships, because there can be some big stuff happening. It's an easier transit to navigate if you're single, because it could mean somebody new comes into your life. But if you're in an existing relationship, and that relationship, maybe there are some things you weren't aware of, or some red flags, or there's been some lingering issues for a while, it can really start to kind of get blown out of proportion in spring. And when the Saturn-Neptune conjunction happens, I believe Mars is going to be like right on one of your personal planets. Let's look. Yeah, it's right on your sun. Look at that. So yes, it'll get easier. Saturn leaves your 6th house, right? Neptune leaves your 6th house. But actually, this is a reprieve compared to what is going to happen next year, where I don't know what's going to happen. I look at this and I'm like, you know, Saturn and Neptune could mean that you become aware that, you know, there is a huge dilemma with the health of a partner. It could also mean that it's bringing in a new therapist, or a new partnership, or a collaboration into your life. I also think that with Mars being on your sun, it means that you're really going after your goals and focusing on what's going to bring you the most joy. But look at that's going to square Uranus, your moon. She says, I'm interested in what the new moon and the water trines will affect me. The new moon, I mean, the water trines are more financial, health, and work related, basically. That's what they're about. And not that they're not going to do anything. They'll do some stuff, but it's going to be more about instinctual learning to negotiate, you know, changes in finances, money, resources, feeling very empowered. And like the whole retrograde that you're going to see next month is going to be about that, changes in your value system, and like concerns or worries or changes with money. That's all trining Saturn and Neptune. So this could be new workflows, new health habits, new eating habits could be part of this. And it's going to trine Jupiter, which is bringing you some kind of career success. You know, as a fellow 0 degrees Libra rising, I have strategically waited until the next month and a half to like put out a bulk of the projects and stuff I've been working on, because I'm like, oh, this is gonna be the best time to do it, because the trines to Jupiter will bring success. The trines to Saturn is about cautious planning. There's a Mercury retrograde, but you know, I think that that's gonna be fine. I think that's gonna be unveiling things that you've been thinking about or working on for a while. Any thoughts on my sun and my moon being at 22 degrees? I recently read that's an interesting degree. Well, that's the kill or be killed degree. Doesn't always play out that way. I have 22 as my moon, and I haven't really seen it like that, but it's a Capricorn degree, so it means it comes with work. It comes as you get older. You know, these things, you start to achieve more fulfillment as you get older, Capricorn. When it comes to romance, creativity, self-expression in the 5th house. When it comes to, you know, social recognition, friendships, you know, things revolving around your goals, 11th house. So 22 means that you have to work hard at it. And obviously you were born in a full moon, so it's about 2 opposing forces. And this is a chart where emotionally you really feel comfortable being a part of the crowd, or being with your friends, or a part of like some kind of collective groups. But what you're here to do with Mars, Sun, Mercury in your 5th is you're really here, I think, to focus more on, especially because Mercury is your North Node ruler, on showing other people your talents, or, you know, creating things and like not hiding them away, or being more open with your creative kind of philosophy, or, you know, showing people your art, or showing people, you know, your intuitive gifts, right? Mercury is connected to your intuition. Yeah, those are interesting degrees, and especially the focal point of the square to Uranus in the second house means that there is untapped potential and opportunity for better financial stability if you're leaning into some of these creative impulses and taking some risks. And whether it's painting, dancing, gambling, you know, trading, these might be things that you're actually really good at, and it can help release some of the pressure of the instability that can sometimes come from Uranus in your financial house. That's kind of cool. I like that. That's right where my nodes are. My north node's right on your sun. My sun's on your Uranus, so we're kind of similar. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Heather. I've got Leah. And Leah is January 5th, 92, 5:31 in Atlanta. And Leah says, this past Monday the 13th at 10 a.m. All right, hold up. October 13th, 2025. I don't know your time zone. But Monday was not a great day astrologically. It was all the squares that was happening between the Jupiter moon squaring the sun, and Venus was at 29, a Virgo where she doesn't like to be, kind of reactivating the eclipse. Okay, Leah says, me and my guy had a big argument and we're not speaking. I've known him 8 years, so should I cut ties or wait it out? Will I pass my test for my job and become a department manager on this up and coming Monday? Well, which one do you want to know? I can tell you, you know, because Saturn represents your relationships, and because Venus was in opposition to Saturn, that was going to represent some feeling of being dissatisfied and difficult communications in relationships, point blank. Even though it was making decent aspects to your 7th house, sometimes those trines can manifest in unfortunate ways. And Saturn is also a little testy because he's retrograde. So now that it's going retrograde back into Pisces in your 9th house, it's about communication issues that's going on with the relationship, which can be kind of hit or miss happening between now and like the beginning of the year. Personally, I think that Venus coming into this degree where we had the September eclipse is really highlighting for a lot of Cancers and Cancer risings where there's been some communication issues that have been happening in relationships for some time. And now it was finally kind of getting aired out, and you were trying to find ways to kind of express that what was and was not working. And the trine to Pluto could manifest as being like, wow, this is a bigger issue or ordeal than we thought. You have to really look at your composite chart and maybe their astrology to get a better idea. But until, you know, we see some negative aspects to Saturn, there's no real guarantee that it's like over. Right? Now, Mercury will retrograde in your 6th house. That'll be happening where it's going to be more about changes going on with your work. That's likely going to be happening in the next month or so. So, you know, with that Mercury retrograde and some of the trines that's going to happen to Saturn, it's fortuitous both for changing schedules at work and getting into a higher position of authority. And also it's good because Mercury will dip back into Scorpio, which is about boyfriends, and it'll trine Saturn. So it almost looks like both of these situations are likely going to be resolved. Jupiter in your 1st house tells me that it's really going to be, are you up to task? Do you have the knowledge? Do you have the management skills? Do you have the wherewithal? Do you have the commitment? And also, above all, take care of your health. Make sure that you're staying on top of things and you're showing up and you're on time. Because you've got all of the triggers here to improve your job and also improve your career. Jupiter's trining Saturn. So health can improve, job can improve, relationships can improve. Through what? Jupiter in the 1st house, optimism. You know, unfortunately with the Moon-Jupiter conjunction, I'm not picking sides. I don't know what happened, but certainly with that square to the sun, it tells me that as a Cancer rising, you got very emotional. And you were feeling very emotionally affected by the fact that, you know, you felt like somebody wasn't listening or you weren't communicating well. And this created a full moon in your chart, right? The moon opposed the sun. And you have Sun, Uranus, and Neptune. So you're no stranger to like partners who can be emotionally distant or cold, or they can be kind of shut off, or, you know, sometimes that they become evasive. And it's not unusual when you have Neptune in the 7th house to get the silent treatment from people, right? Pluto over the next couple of years, it's conjuncting your Saturn. And that means there's going to be some huge changes happening in relationships, both for a financial standpoint and in terms of intimacy. And like that's going to ramp up over the next year. So even though you are like a total warrior and Pluto's gone through all your Capricorn stuff, when it hits your Saturn, that's going to be like, is this healthy? Is this working? And I think maybe you've had these conversations in recent months because Mars went retrograde in opposition to Saturn, bringing up self-esteem issues if there was like relationship problems. And now Mercury just did the same thing. So there should be an improvement in like an ability to either get back into dating in November if you guys don't reconcile, or be able to kind of reconnect. And honestly, there could be a much stronger kind of relationship period at the end of January going into December, the end of December going into January, when you start to see like this heavy stellium of planets going into your 7th house. So it's hard to say. Really, it's going to depend on their transits. But I'm looking at all of this. And this also makes me feel like your work schedule and stuff is going to change, because as it's squaring Saturn, you're like, I can't be traveling, or I can't really make time for, relationships right now. I got to be really focused on work. And then that starts to shift at the end of December, where there's like a heavy focus with Venus, Sun, Mars, Mercury, all in your 7th house. Sextiling Saturn, actually opposing Jupiter. So that tells me that relationships might show up stronger, or they're going to be more productive, or they're going to be trying more to kind of help ease some of the communication issues that's been kind of happening. Uranus is in opposition to Venus, but not exact. And between Uranus opposing Venus the next like year and a half and Pluto conjuncting Saturn, if this is a continuing series of problems you're having in this relationship, it's gonna need to be dealt with. Like it's gonna need to kind of like, you guys need to get out with it and figure out where the communication issues lie. South Node hitting Jupiter too could definitely bring up some communication challenges, but it is positive for making changes with like your work and your schedule. I'd be curious what his birthday is, because I feel like that's going to play a huge role in, whether or not definitively we can see if it's about you reconciling with him or if it's about another person kind of coming in. But look, you guys have been together 8 years, right? So you've gone through a Saturn square, and I feel like with Venus in opposition to Saturn, it's saying that likely that argument wasn't just a one-off thing. It's been like almost like a festering of some communication issues or some distance or some coldness in a relationship that you've been feeling for a little while. Now you're just finally addressing it. Hopefully you do get the job though, because I can see some of the transits that are kind of coming up that makes me feel like there is going to be a job change. You may hear back from him around October 23rd, 24th. And then some of the work-related changes looks like that may be happening as early as the end of October. So with Mercury retrograde, it's about getting situated with a new routine, a new schedule, a new department. And that's going to retrograde, and it's going to trine Saturn. So things look more stable in the work department, and those changes and the relationships come like the 3rd week of November. So let me know what happens. It's all about how you're looking at it. It's like, okay, there could be some stuff going on where the relationship's off, but you're like, I'm filling my schedule with something new. I'm working out. I'm staying busy. A lot of this is about staying optimistic and staying busy and allowing, with the Mercury retrograde, a way to be able to reconnect and kind of strengthen your guys' communication, and a little bit of time to let things air out may actually be a good thing with this chart. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Leah. All right, well, I think that's everybody for this evening. So for those of you guys who came to hang out with me, thanks for hanging out with me on a Friday night. I appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. Click the bell button below so that way you guys can be alerted as when I have new videos. I'm here every Friday. Catch me back next week. We're going to do tarot. I'll show you guys the new deck that I have been working on, and you'll get to get a sneak peek and see what that looks like. We should have that ready hopefully next month. If you guys want to see more about me and my work, if you'd like to learn tarot or astrology, or if you want to book a personal reading with me, maybe you want to pick up a transit calendar for your phone, click the links below in the description. Head over to beyondtheveiledtarot.com. You can find all of that there. You can schedule, you can see my courses, all my goodies, and all that stuff. And I will see you guys on Sunday for Astro Weather. We're going to talk about everything Mercury and Mars, why everybody's getting a little testy, and how to navigate that. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will catch you back here very soon. Take care.